Hi friends, welcome in. Jade and Echo, variety streamer. I cook, I craft, I make shit, I do whatever. I'm trying to make a blanket. I'm trying to see how long it takes me to make this blanket. I'm doing 60 inches, but I don't know till I'm done. I got 4 balls. I'm gonna get 4 more balls, but for sure right now I got 4 balls. And I just started my 3rd ball. So this is the ombre pattern that I'm doing. Forest green. This camera has the better color. But whatever. It's gonna have the light to dark to light to dark to light to dark to light to dark. The edges are gonna be the darks. But it's gonna go light to dark ombreing with green. Each ball I'm using is 300 grams. 300 grams means, well, they call it a cake. Each cake, this is why they call it a cake. Each cake is 300 grams. 300 grams means it's 3 balls of yarn. 1 ball of yarn is 100 grams. Are we following? Are we on board with the math? Okay, good. So, 300 grams. Yeah? 3 balls of yarn per cake. Alright? And I got 2 balls left. So I got 6 balls of yarn already on this bitch. Technically. And I got 6 more balls to go. But I still feel like it's gonna probably need another 2 cakes. Or possibly another 4 cakes. Because I want to make a big ass Afghan. But I don't know how far it's gonna go. Right? Because like right now, I'm getting... What am I at right now? 2 balls of yarn. Let's see. Two balls of yarn got us about 19 inches. Yeah. I mean, it's got to be pulled and stretched out and put through the wash and everything. So I'd probably say it's closer to 20. I'm going to say 20 inches right now. And I want to do 60 by 80. So yeah, I need more yarn. 60 by 80. 2 balls got me about 20 inches. So another 2 balls will get me that 40-inch distance. So that means if I want an 80 distance, I'm going to need another 4 cakes. Cakes of yarn. And if you don't understand my measurement and why I need 60 by 80, a queen size standard bed is 60 by 80 inches. That's a queen size bed. I'm making a grown up size Afghan that you could like put on a bed or whatever. But to put one of those cakes, which is 3 balls of yarn, onto here takes me about 6 hours. So 2 hours per yarn ball. Are we all on board with the math now? Yes. Woo woo. So. Six, 12, 2 days. Takes me 2 days. 48 hours to make a blanket. All together. But I'm not gonna just fucking loom for 48 straight fucking hours. Get your shit together. Anyway, y'all are gonna watch Asians make cake things. And we're gonna watch some updates on BJ. BJ? Our queen BJ. Oh wait. We gotta play the thing. We're gonna have some fun tonight, and you can touch my boobies.
We're gonna have some fun tonight, 'cause you can't touch my boobies. Don't be shy, yeah, it's alright, 'cause you can't touch my boobies.
Yay! That's right. You too can touch my boobies. Do 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 do. Okay. Asians making cakes. BJ telling us the news. Loom in a blanket.
Hello everybody, how are you doing this fine Tuesday, January 20th? It's been a while since we spoke about Britney Spears, but I don't know if you noticed or not, that's really what started it all for me here on YouTube, and even before YouTube, I was on Instagram and other social media websites kind of trying to get justice for Britney, trying to free Britney at the time, and so in some ways this will be a walk down memory lane. I did recently, actually just today, because of this amazing account, Mona Lisa Nee, this came across my desk here, and as you can see, it was posted 5 hours ago. It says Britney Spears' former manager, Larry Rudolph, grabs Britney by her arm and lets go as soon as he spots a camera filming them. So let's just take a look at that, and then I do have some things to say. All right, so apparently this is 2013. Look at him. Look, see the grabbing. Oh, and then he lets go. Okay, so let's watch the clip play out. Right here, that would be Yazdani. What was his name? Mamdani, Amdani. What's this guy's name? Oh, shoot, I forgot. Okay, wait, hold on. Again, watch how he's got it a clasp on her arm, upper arm like this. And you know what it does remind me of? I don't know if there's any connection. I'm not in any position to know if there is any connection, but how Woe Vicky always has bruise marks like that appear to be fingerprint marks right on her arm. It's like someone's dragging her around. It's like when I imagine what must be going on to give her those bruise marks on her upper arm, I imagine it's something like this. Look, watch how he sees the camera, and look, he's got it grabbed, he's talking, and lets it go. This is the guy from Black Box Security. I forget his name. I'm trying to see if I recognize anybody else around. That's Larry Rudolph, though. This almost looks like Sam Luffy. But that was supposedly 2013. That was about the time of her first residency. She would go on to have another residency and then ultimately signed up for a third one. And that one is really where the you-know-what hit the fan. That third residency was supposed to begin around the 2018 end of 2018, if I recall correctly, and Britney was promised that she wouldn't have to do any more of these residencies before she was able to take a break first. They did not give her a break as promised, and a real break, like some time off. She was put into a conservatorship in 2008, and in my opinion, it was illegal and unconstitutional because Britney's reason for getting put into a conservatorship was they checked a box that said she had dementia, or like something like dementia or whatever, and it was like, we're going to provide proof before the hearing. No doctor, from what I understand, ever provided any proof that Britney had dementia, and she would have had dementia 26 years old. So she was put into this conservatorship because she supposedly had dementia, and then she was never proven to have dementia by anybody. So eventually she did get out of it, but not before she spoke to the judge in a public speech, and she said the only thing that she could consider equating her situation to in the state of California is S trafficking. So she basically said she was S trafficked. She said that she believed that her management was trying to kill her. She specifically called out certain people, including members of her family, including Lou Taylor, Robin Greenhill, the TriStar Sports and Entertainment crew. She called out her own dad and all of that. But really the signs were always here. Okay, so she gets put into a conservatorship in 2008, and I think that same exact year they announced that she's going to be going on a tour. She does end up going on a tour or two, and then they take her from going on tours to instead putting her as a kind of quasi-permanent figure on the Las Vegas night scene, or in the night scene of Las Vegas, and she did end up having, like I said, 3 residencies. But the last one, she started to say no to things. She said no to a dance move, and she said it was that exact thing, saying no to a dance move, that got her immediately put on a very, very powerful psychiatric medication called lithium. And she claims the reason she got put onto this lithium was specifically because she was saying no to dance moves on that third residency. But she said she had been promised that she could take a break, she could take some time off. She was too incapacitated to enter into a contract. Remember, like, she's still in a conservatorship at this time. She was too supposedly incapacitated to enter into a contract or to determine whether or not she wanted to have a baby, to determine what she was going to eat for dinner each night. She wasn't allowed to choose those things. She couldn't drink. She couldn't buy anything without, you know, asking people's permission. She could not use her own money that she was earning. And this was her life. It was like a prison. It was over a decade. And so when she started saying no, she claimed she was immediately put on lithium. Now, what's even more interesting about this whole case, the plot thickens because the doctor who gave her the lithium for not doing the dance move they wanted her to do during the residency, she didn't want to do at all. She didn't want to do the residency at all, and then they were forcing her to do certain dance moves or else drugging her with lithium. And this was all happening very in front of us. This was all happening very, very in front of our faces. And I'm not even going to say nobody noticed, because thousands of people noticed. But the people who were noticing were not powerful enough to affect a change at the time. Now, little by little by little, that voice did become powerful, and it became a global socio-political human rights and disability and women's rights movement, which was successful in some regard, indisputably. But, you know, you had the media like Chloe Mayloss in communication with who I believe to be this guy right here, Larry Rudolph, also maybe possibly Jeff Raymond. Now, I've never actually overheard her having a conversation with any of these people. I don't know that to be the case for sure, but that's just what I think. So, seeing this clip again just really kind of highlighted not seeing this clip again. I'm not sure I've ever seen this specific clip. But this is, 2013, Kiss FM's Wango Tango. And it does show how much of this stuff was for appearances. Another thing that they would do to Britney is they would let her be on stage in Vegas, but they would turn her mic off, or they would cut her mic off just so, like, right after she would finish singing, they would cut it off so she couldn't speak to the audience. There was a time where she said, "This feels illegal with this mic." And it's like truly slavery and trafficking of individuals right in front of our very eyes. Now, I'm not saying Larry Rudolph specifically did that, so don't send any letters to me, okay? I don't know. I'm not accusing Larry Rudolph of doing any crimes. But it just does kind of give me a reminder of the utter kind of powerlessness that I personally can attest to feeling. Looking through all of this stuff, I started my Free Britney awareness in about 2020. In the middle of 2020. And it does kind of remind me of how it's like this stuff is so obvious and it was just happening right here in front of everybody, but because there was the help of the media and a lot of money behind Britney and the enslavement, the slavery of Britney Spears, the human trafficking of Britney Spears, it was like the powers that actually be who had the power to do something just couldn't. And even now to this day, it seems like they won't. And, I always will be cheering for, advocating for justice for Britney. But at this point, she has spoken for her own self, and the powers that be don't seem to have made a single freaking move. They're arresting Timothy Busfield, and they're arresting this person and that person, and maybe they should be. Maybe the Alexander brothers and the Abercrombie owner and Diddy and all of them should have ought to been arrested. But in my opinion, it's about time, if it hasn't started already, for some investigations and possibly even some arrests to be being made in the Britney Spears case. Because right now, where that case stands is a bunch of unfinished business. The state of California, along with the courts, allowed and encouraged and enabled the trafficking of one of the most famous women who ever lived. They rubber stamped it. They allowed it to happen. They enabled it to happen. The government of the state of California, the government of the state of Nevada, can we get somebody investigated? They didn't even investigate her parents. They had, where is the justice for Britney Spears? Are we ever going to see that? Are we ever going to see that? I know there's other problems in the world, but this lady was trafficked and enslaved in front of our very eyes. And I just want to let y'all know, as a reminder, why I started this in the first place. That's why whenever I see all these media stories about Nick Reiner being a crazed sociopath, crazy schizo, this thing, that thing, the other thing, Doctors can diagnose people with anything. And, you know, the guy that diagnosed Brittany and gave her that lithium, the guy that gave her the lithium, he's no longer living. And it's disputed how he died. Some places had said he had an embolism. Some said aneurysm. These are very different things. He died, like, right before he was supposed to go into testify in the Brittany case. There's just so much stuff that's unresolved here, and it needs to be resolved, and there needs to be some type of justice, not only to Britney Spears and for Britney Spears, absolutely her first and foremost, because she is the primary victim here, but also to the rest of the public, to the taxpayers of the state of California who paid for those judges to assist in the trafficking of this woman. Because it wasn't a big secret, okay? We have Britney being dragged around by her arm, all right? I mean, Yemeni, that was that guy's name, right? Yemeni. This one. He ended up being, I think, Kris Jenner's security guard. And then as soon as he gets into the camera, then he moves the arm and he moves the hand. Now, I'm not saying Larry Rudolph did anything that was criminal per se, but I am saying that Britney Spears claimed that she was trafficked. She claimed that she was abused and treated in ways unspeakable, and it wasn't just by Hollywood and the music industry and her family. No. The actual judiciary, the government of the state of California, LAPD, UCLA Hospital, the Resnick Psychiatric, whatever the hell hospital over there. I mean, none of these people are going to face any consequences for the trafficking of Britney Spears. I'm going to keep beating the drum. I mean, y'all might have noticed I talk less about the story now because it's like I have made thousands. I would be surprised if I made less than tens of thousands of hours of videos, and what happened? I don't know what else I could possibly say. I mean, there's more things, but like, it's time for the feds to get involved. It's been time for decades. Facts ain't defamation. Neither are opinions. Everybody's innocent until proven guilty. Love you, mean it, K-Bye. Welcome into my world. You're playing my game. Thought that you could come up and they're bidding off of my name. Talking out the side of your neck like you're insane. Cortisol levels to the roof. Inflame. Kids these days so shameless. Selling out real friends for a paycheck. Mama didn't teach them no home training. Wanna be me so bad, but they failing. Step to the plate though. I'll take a challenger. I ain't scared. In hearing, I thought we could start with the video stream by reading just a little article here about it. I'm going to go on the reader view here. Okay, so this is the Tri-State homepage. Timothy Busfield to appear in New Mexico court for detention hearing. Albuquerque actor-director Timothy Busfield is set to face a judge Tuesday at 2 p.m. So that's the mountain time, which is 2 hours before my time zone right now. It is 3:50 where I am. So it's 1:50 p.m. mountain time at this current moment of this live stream. So we do have 10 minutes until the hearing starts. Now, what I do want to let y'all know is there was some footage from inside the courtroom from the arraignment, okay? But I looked just now. We'll look again together. It doesn't appear as though this is like a live streamed type of thing, although it may be. But whenever I was just now looking, I was looking for the last, hour or so, I did not see anyone even purporting to be live broadcasting the hearing. But I hope that we're going to get some live tweets or something like that. We're gonna be booping and bopping around, as it were, to try and see what information we can gather. Now, if we're unable to get inside the courtroom, I do have several filings that we can read together and go over, and that will show, what types of things are being argued about and things like that. Now, Timothy Busfield's wife, Laura Ingalls from the Little House on the Prairie, yes, her, she was a former child actor herself, and she has been making a little bit of waves in the media. She's been writing to the judge, and it was reported today that this lady, Melissa Gilbert, is going to be expected to be one of 12 or like almost a dozen. So I don't know, almost a dozen means like, 10 or 11 as far as what I'm concerned. But she is one of the supposed witnesses that is supposedly going to be called today at the detention hearing. Not only is one witness getting called, but apparently close to a dozen witnesses. This follows news reports that Timothy Busfield had, what was it, over 60 or over 70 people submit letters on his behalf attesting to his character. So today's hearing doesn't have to do with anything about guilt or innocence. Today's hearing it's a detention hearing. The government, the Albuquerque state, the state of New Mexico through the Albuquerque Department of the District Attorney's Office has asked the court to keep Timothy Busfield in jail, pending his trial. Now, Timothy said he don't want to be in jail. His wife has written the court, said he doesn't need to be in jail. She needs him. This person needs him. Her delinquent son needs him, and all this stuff. So today's hearing is all just about whether or not Timothy is going. Oh my gosh, is Rabbit in here? Oh my god, please. Shout out to Rabbit in the chat. Is she really in here? I know she's live right now too. But yes, shout out to Rabbit. She's also live here today too. It does make me also, Sarah, think about the Drake Bell situation where he, regardless what you think about him as an adult, there was a time before he was an adult when he was just a kid, and I'm just talking about that, time period and that person. But I think he was maybe 15 years old, and there was like 75 people, 50 people or something that had written letters in support of his supposed, abuser. Yeah, it also reminds Alexis, of the Danny Masterson case. Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't follow that case closely. Wouldn't that be biased because they're married? Yeah, but as long as a bias is disclosed, biased people are allowed to speak. Like families of victims can speak in a lot of these sentencings and things like that. So, yeah, bias, but that doesn't mean that it's not allowed in court. At this stage, remember, because this isn't the stage, again, where they're doing guilt or innocence. This isn't going to be putting on evidence for the purpose of the trial. Strictly speaking, it's putting on evidence for the purposes of whether or not he should be allowed to get out on bail or not. Now, the government has filed, she's not in the chat. Yeah, well, I wouldn't expect her to be, because she is live right now, I think. And she, yeah, they can't, well, you can testify against your husband, but you don't have to. You can't be compelled to testify against your spouse. Somebody said I rebuked those letters. And look, listen, if Timothy Busfield is really truly innocent, which I don't know, he could be because I wasn't there. We're going to have to see the evidence as it plays out. I am very sympathetic to people, like not spending unnecessary, unwarranted time in jail. Okay, that's ridiculous to be able to hold somebody who's innocent in jail. I do see that side of things. That being said, there are certainly cases where there is probable cause to lock this person up. Maybe they're a flight risk. Maybe they indicated that they were, something like that. And that's why each and every case gets its own detention hearing. What I will say is the government has filed what it purports to be evidence that Timothy Busfield should not be walking free amongst the land of the living. And they, like I said, they submitted that in a filing, and we can read that together. We already did read it together, so I'm probably not going to go through line by line or anything like that, but I'll pull it back up and show y'all. In the meantime, let's finish this article. He's facing charges. He's accused of inappropriate actions on a movie, or excuse me, on a TV show set. He also was an actor. He turned himself in a video he shared with TMZ before his arrest. He called the allegations false. He is saying that he did not do this stuff. He was held without bond at his first court appearance last week. At his hearing today, prosecutors are going to seek to convince a judge to keep Timothy Busfield behind bars until the trial. Pointing to a pattern of SUL misconduct allegations going all the way back to the 1990s, none of those prior cases ever led to criminal charges. Yesterday, Busfield's defense team submitted 2 brief audio recordings of initial police interviews in which the children say that Busfield did not inappropriately, them. Prosecutors claim, though, that those recordings don't exonerate Timothy. They suggest that maybe the boys simply didn't disclose the abuse at the time. But this, like I said, and I did prepare y'all, I did warn you, and I did prepare you, this is one of the things that Timothy Busfield's defense is going to use, and frankly is going to have to use. That the stories from the boys, the accusers, have changed. The very first time they sat down and spoke with, I think it was doctors or maybe it was investigators of some sort, the boys not only didn't say that Timothy Busfield had touched them inappropriately, what they actually said affirmatively was that he did not. They said he did not touch them inappropriately. Now that, put together with the fact that Timothy Busfield does seem to be very media savvy. He seems to be wanting to try this in the court of public opinion, which is his right, I guess. If there's going to be stories run, I guess he should be allowed to get his stuff out there. But there's already been a little bit of speculation on the part of the media, different people speaking and talking about the case, that Timothy Busfield is going to be making a major push, even in today's detention hearing, to play this out in court, to affect our opinion, the court of public opinion, meaning our opinion. Oh my God, Alexa said, I just got an ad for Abercrombie, jump scare. Well, shout out, I hope they pay good, because I'll take their money. I mean, honestly, like, I don't mind, I like Abercrombie clothes. I do have a few items, but from what I understand, that former CEO hasn't been the CEO for many, many years. Okay, on Monday, Busfield's defense submitted the audio recordings of those brief audio recordings, basically little snippets of initial police interviews with the kids. Prosecutors, though, are saying, yeah, that doesn't mean he's innocent. That doesn't mean he's completely exonerated. Like, sure, maybe that does something to our evidence. Maybe we do have to get to the bottom of why their story has changed, but that's what a trial is for, and this man is dangerous. That is what the prosecutors are alleging. In a previous criminal complaint, an investigator with the police department said one of the children had reported that Busfield touched him on an inappropriate area when he was 7, another time when he was 8. The boy's twin brother told authorities that he was also touched inappropriately, but he didn't specify where. He just said he didn't say anything because he didn't want to get in trouble. One of the boys had disclosed during a therapy session that he was inappropriately touched. According to the complaint, those records were obtained by police during the investigation, the therapy records. Busfield's wife, actress, Melissa Gilbert, could speak Tuesday, that's today, at her husband's detention hearing. She played Laura Ingalls in the 70s and 80s TV series Little House on the Prairie, and she is on the list of potential witnesses submitted. Now, some of these documents that they're alluding to, I have not been able to get my hands on. Like, for example, I have not been able to get my hands on this witness list that they're expecting to call today. Let me show y'all the case itself. So, I have some new information. Clip this, breaking news. There are now 2 separate cases which are showing up for the search of Timothy Busfield's name. So I did want to show y'all this. This is a public record. So this one right here, T-4-FR 2026-000273, Timothy Busfield, date of birth 1957, defendant, state of New Mexico versus Timothy Busfield. And the judge in this one is judge, honorable, whatever, I don't know, honorable or dishonorable, we don't know yet. Judges can go both ways these days. Shanetta R. Estrada. This is the filing date of the 9th. Now, January 9th is when the arrest warrant was issued, and of course they did not get hands on Timothy Busfield for several days after that. But look, there's another case that now shows up when you type his name in, and I believe that this is the case for the detention hearing specifically. This is the case that got transferred to district court because it has to do with detention.
Actually,
and the name of the judge is Brett R. Lovelace. Okay, I do not want my judge to have the last name Lovelace. All right, that is scary. But I'm just going to click on that one. Well, I guess I'll click on the first one first, the top one first. And this is his charges. And as you can see, the most recent event in the event description is from the 14th. Today is the 20th. So this is from 6 days ago, almost a week ago. Transferred to district court for the pre-trial detention motion. Okay, so if we go all the way back, it's not a very long list of events, but if we go all the way back to January 9th, criminal complaint, that's when it was filed and the warrant did issue. The warrant was issued on the 9th, like I said, remaining defendant pending first appearance. Okay, so then the warrant was served on the 13th, offender booking sheet, public safety assessment. And then on the 14th, the government filed a motion for pre-trial detention. That happened on the 14th.
Jesus.
That same very day, the judge said,
Fucking
okay,
sleeves.
Judge Shanetta Estrada said, okay, bet. We're going to then transfer this case for the pretrial purposes of the pretrial detention. That's what I think happened. That's what it looks like to me. So then we're going to go to that next case over here. It's really not a next case. Again, this is just for the purpose, I believe, of the hearing
Stick it
for the
between my
detention, which
boobs.
is happening
They can
today,
hold it.
right now, as of 3 minutes
go.
ago. It supposedly had started.
Good job. Hold the shirt, boobies.
So this case
All right,
number
what game are we
is
playing?
D-202-P as in Paul, D as in dog, -2026-00051. Okay, so this one has several events as well. Petition for pretrial detention. Then Tim got a lawyer. Christopher A. Dodd. Okay, he enters. Then the detention hearing was set for today at 2 p.m. in person, courtroom 602. There's a discovery order. We can take a look at that. I do have the petition for the pretrial detention. We will look at that together. I think I also have the discovery order. We'll take a look at that if so. Another lawyer enters into the docket, entry of appearance. I guess she's going to be the one that's going to be arguing today about the detention. Now, there's going to be a couple things that the judge is going to be looking for and a few things that are going to need to be argued about today. On the high level, on the surface level, you know, the obvious thing is he going to walk free or is he going to be detained? Is he going to be able to be living out among the land of the living while he's awaiting trial, or is he going to be stuck in jail? Now, I will tell y'all my prediction off the bat is stuck in jail. That being said, don't take my prediction as too, don't give it too much weight, because first of all, this is New Mexico. To my knowledge, I don't want to misspeak, but to my memory, to my knowledge right now, I don't remember ever covering any New Mexico cases, so I really don't know how these New Mexico cases work. I don't know how the courts are, and also this is a state level case, not a federal case. But
Hi,
if
Mac
this
Mac.
were a federal case, which I do have only slightly more experience following as a member of the
I can
public,
decide what game I want to play.
then usually if something has to do with children, there is what is called a presumption of detention. That means that it's a type of case where a preliminary hearing or a probable cause affidavit or some type of probable cause has been found enough to detain this person in the first place. And if it has to do with children, they're very serious about keeping people locked up. Now, we can, of course, reasonable minds can disagree over whether that's fair, whether that's constitutional and all that, but that is just kind of like how it is right now. So I did want to just describe that. But nevertheless, he is still going to have to prove a few things if he wants to walk free among the land of the living.
I guess you
and,
just keep
like
playing
one of the
the
questions that the judge is
story
going
of
to have
seasons.
to get an answer from the two parties and try to figure out what's the truth is, number one, does Timothy Busfield pose a threat to the community or to anybody in particular, to victims, to witnesses? Does he pose a threat to the trial, a fair trial? Does he pose a threat to obstruction of justice, things like that? Another question is going to be, does he demonstrate the ability to follow and respect court orders? Now, the prosecutors are going to argue, no, he doesn't. He knew that there was a warrant out for his arrest, and he went gallivanting all over the country. He did a lie detector test in the meantime. He did a video and gave it to TMZ. He doesn't have the ability to follow orders. But Timothy Busfield's side is going to say, yes, he does, because he turned himself in. Nobody had to come and bust down his door. They did do that, but they didn't need to because it was 1 hour before he turned himself in. And his lawyer would argue and have argued, has the right to defend himself. If they're going to be running stories, and he has the right to speak to. He was in the process of turning himself in, and he turned himself in a reasonable time frame and at a reasonable time and in a reasonable manner. So these are going to be the two different sides that are going to be argued, okay, just specifically with respect to this detention hearing.
Okay, dokie.
So As I was showing y'all and pointing out, there was also other stuff that was filed, entry of appearance. This prosecutor, Savannah Brandenburg Koch, enters for the state. Notice of redaction of personal identifying information. And then there was an order, a standing decorum order. Now, this was days ago, the last document that is publicly shown as being filed. But we do know that there was a submission at least last night. So some of this stuff must be being submitted off the public record, at least for now. And they don't, like, as you can see here, they don't really make the documents available, like, to purchase or anything right here. But I was able to find
Yeah,
there's
level
different,
10
there's different
wheat.
sources that have been able to get these and procure these, I think, pursuant to FOIA type requests. So I want to go over some of those, and there was a standing decorum order. Oh, I want to go over some
back
of
in
those.
the
So then there was
ground.
the standing decorum order. Now, as you can see here, the hearing date is today. The detention hearing before Judge David Murphy.
Fuck
This
yeah.
is going to be in the
Alright, we need more
Albuquerque
seeds.
District Court, courtroom 620. Since this is a district court, let me just see if maybe Pacer has
Ooh.
something
Shit
on it. I'll just take a look quickly. It'd be nice if we could get some of these documents. Okay, so I'm going to run a search for Timothy. No. Busfield, B-U-S-F-I-E-L-D.
Why can't I make
No, nothing here for that. Okay.
Why can't I make more wheat
So let me
seeds?
just do like a quick search of just like the news right now.
Fine.
I do have many things to go over with y'all today. So even if this isn't live, like live, I do have stuff to update you with. What is this? It says Timothy Busfield in court for pre-trial detention hearing. So this does say live. Okay, so this is Fox News. I'll take a look on some other ones while this ad plays. See if there's like a YouTube channel streaming it.
Fucking chickens.
Oh, maybe.
Ooh, an extra fancy sparkling egg. Egg.
Wait, maybe it is live.
Egg.
Wait a second.
Wait a minute.
I'm gonna get my speaker fixed. Hold on.
Hold up, wait a
Part 2 of the hearing will
minute.
receive the state's 6 exhibits and the defendant's A through BB. 28 exhibits, something like that. The court is going to enter in the background history report and the public safety assessment as court's exhibits 1 and 2.
Autumn.
Those are already reflected in what you guys have seen.
Autumn
So, those all
Alright, that means that
admitted.
these
Each
chili
side will have 1
peppers
hour for its presentation.
are poopies. We got better chili peppers. Boop. Boop. Oh, wait, I gotta let the other animals out. Fuck. Dude, I gotta chop all that shit down. It's in the way. Little chickens.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state is requesting that this court find the defendant dangerous and that there are no conditions of release that this court can impose to secure the safety of this community. As the court noted, I did send exhibits, and defense has a copy of those as well. The state's exhibits are focused on what 509 actually requires. Since how the plaintiff is not a credibility trial, it's not a civil damages dispute, nor is it the studio's internal investigation, which is at best minimal and insufficient. It's whether the defendant is dangerous and if conditions to the community. Thank you. And that's what the
Jam.
state will be focusing on.
What up, cow?
As I go through the state's exhibits, I will
Llama,
address
llama, 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 llama.
defendant's exhibits as well. I know the court gave the state an hour, so I would like to reserve some time.
Llama,
for-
llama, 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 llama.
So the state's first exhibit is just a printout of Odyssey
Cow.
of the defendant's.
That's a Buffalo Bill.
New
He's a
Mexico
buffalo. His name is Bill. Buffalo
shows that
Bill.
there is
Get
no
it?
defense.
I named the Buffalo Bill.
State's exhibit
And I
2
milk
is
it.
where this is actions
Buffalo
from the
Bill.
underlying
And it gets milked.
case that we're here on, and just an event of
Totally
the
normal, right?
criminal
I know.
complaint was filed and the arrest warrant and when that warrant was served, along with the criminal complaint, which I will mostly focus
Okay.
on today.
I don't want to watch it. Click. Instead, we're going to watch murder.
You know, she sent out a text to Julie asking like, hey, free and makeup Monday. If you are new here, hi. My name is Bailey Sarian, and on Mondays I sit down and I talk about a true crime
Whoops,
story
wrong
that's
one.
been heavy on my noggin, and I do my makeup at the same time. If you're interested in true crime and you like makeup, I would highly suggest you hit that subscribe button because I'm here for you
Whoops.
on Mondays. I'm so excited because today I get to mention this collaboration I've been working on with Etta Love. Now, some of you may remember when I collaborated a couple months ago with Etta Love. I came out with 2 jewelry pieces. It was the all-seeing eye pendant and the ring. I was so nervous, like no one's gonna buy it, whatever. I was so nervous, and it sold out, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is so cool. It's
I don't
so
see any
cool
bears.
to create stuff that people really like. This is just really cool, you know. And Etta Love wanted to do another collaboration, and I was like, hell yeah. So this time,
God damn it.
bees.
Where the bears at?
Bees. Maybe you've been seeing me wear these for like, man, it's been like a
Okay,
good
we
amount of time
definitely
I've been
watched
wearing.
her talk about
Oh my
bees.
god, kill them. Like, just get rid of them, whatever. The guy just looked at me like, no. And I was like, okay. And then he went on this whole shaboodle, like, down in the description box where you can find them. Also, we have a restock on the previous items I collaborated with Etta Love on. Did I word that correctly? I'll list it down in the description box. I appreciate your guys' love and support. It really means more than you know, and I can't say thank you enough. Let's get into today's story because, okay, so today's story, let me clip my hair. Today's story is bizarre because, once again, people just really shock you on what they're capable of, right? Like every week I feel like I'm shocked because what the hell is going on? Anyone know what the hell is going on? Because I don't sometimes. So, if you're curious as to what I'm using, I will list everything in the description box. But other than that, let's get into today's story. So, Julie Kibuishi, she was born on Valentine's Day in 1987. She was the first daughter to her mother June and her father Masa. She was the baby girl that they had been dreaming of. She was treated like a princess of the house, but growing up with 2 brothers, it brought out more of like the tomboy traits, you know? She was super athletic, and it was said that she loved sports, but when she was 5 years old, that's when she really got into dance, and dance became like her passion. She did every kind of dance. She did tap dance, lyrical jazz, and ballet. Plus, her artistic passions really didn't stop with dance. She was just like overall a very artistic girl. She loved design, and she also enrolled at Orange Coast College in Southern California as an art major while living at home with her parents. So on Friday, May 21st, 2010, Julie told her mom that she was headed to Long Beach to meet with her brother for dinner to help him and his fiance plan for their wedding. She told her mother not to stay up because she probably, she wouldn't be home till late. So she says, bye mom, love you, and then heads out the door. And then that was the last time June saw her daughter alive. So while at dinner with her brother and soon-to-be sister-in-law, Julie, her phone kept going off because she was getting text messages from her friend Sam Pear. Now, the text messages suggested that Sam was having some kind of family problem and he just needed like a shoulder to cry on. I think the text said something along the lines of, quote, just needed a girl's shoulder to cry on. Julie told her brother about Sam, saying that he was just a friend, but that he was like a big brother, and that if he got the chance to meet Sam, he would definitely like him. Now, Sam was the only child of Steve and Raquel, and he was a decorated combat veteran in the U.S. Army. He had served in Afghanistan, and Sam had come home and enrolled in college so that he could get his degree and go back into the Army because he really
Okay.
liked to travel. His father would describe him as a big bleep. He was 1 week shy of his 27th birthday, and Sam and Julie, they were just friends. Sam was like a big brother to everyone and always there for anyone who needed him. He was just like an all-around good person, it sounded like. And Julie ended up
fucking
tutoring
garlic
Sam
I need.
in anthropology, and she helped
What
Sam
I
get
need
an
is
A
garlic.
in that class. And Julie, she was very loving and a giving person, the kind of person who would bend over backwards for a friend. So they just
Well,
really
did she
cared
bend
about
over
each other.
forward,
but
too?
Julie was feeling a little concerned about Sam because of the text
Not
she
that I
had
have
received.
anything wrong
So she
with
tells her
bending
brother,
over
like, hey, I'm gonna go over to Sam's
I
apartment
drank
and
my
kinda see what's going on
fucking
with him,
water,
'cause he
you
doesn't seem like
amazing
he's doing too
bastard.
well. So
Shut
she
the
ends up
Christ
meeting her
up.
brother's
Stop
place, and
fucking
she heads
worrying
out to
about
Sam's
me.
apartment. So the next
Motherfucking
morning
awesome
comes
bestie.
along. It was Saturday morning.
Getting
and Julie
sick of
wasn't
your love
home.
and care,
So her
okay?
mom wasn't,
Fuck off.
like, immediately worried, but you know, she sent out a text
Stop fucking
to
caring
Julie
about
asking,
me.
like, hey, where are you at? But she knew that, like, if Julie had been drinking at all, she would often stay at her brother's place because, you know,
Fucking wonderful
don't drink and
human
drive.
being.
So she wasn't like too worried.
Fuck
She
right
just
off.
needed to figure out where she was at. But when Julie still wasn't home around noon, that's when June
Okay, what was I
texted her
doing?
daughter again, and she didn't get a response.
Don't
so
I have an
she's
olive
like,
tree?
Okay, like, what's going on? So she calls
Still
her
no
daughter,
fucking
and
garlic?
the phone just rings and rings,
Still
and
no
then it just
fucking
goes
garlic.
to voicemail. So that's when June
God
was like really starting to
damn!
get worried because it's just unlike her daughter, you know. So June called her son to see if he knew where Julie was, and that's when she learned that Julie had gone to Sam's that night. So she doesn't have Sam's number, but June had a list of Julie's friends' phone numbers. So she's like, okay, maybe I can, like, you know, call them all up, and somebody has to have Sam's number, or maybe somebody knows where, like, Julie is at. So she goes down the list, and she starts contacting everyone she can. Now, nobody had seen Julie, and her mom said that she had that like sickening feeling in her stomach, you know, when something's just not right, you know. So when she couldn't get a hold of her daughter, figure out where her daughter was at, she decides to call the Irvine police to place a missing persons report.
Poop,
But
poop,
Julie
poop, poop,
wasn't
poop,
the only person not responding to calls or text messages.
Eggplant?
On Saturday, May 22nd,
I might wanna keep that.
Sam was also
Poop, poop.
supposed to, like, spend the weekend with
Poop,
his family.
poop,
Saturday
poop,
came and
poop,
his family
poop.
had not heard from him. Like, where's he
Relationship.
at? You know, hours go by, they try to call him, but the calls are just going straight to
Broccolis?
voicemail. Okay, weird, you know? So Sam's father, he had
No,
a
that's
key to
poop.
Sam's apartment in Costa
That's a poop.
Mesa. So he was like, okay, maybe
Then that's a
I'll
poop
just go
too.
down there and, like,
I'll
see
keep
if
that
Sam's
radish, though.
there. Maybe he lost his phone. Maybe he, whatever, you know, let me just go down there. So his dad
Olive.
goes down there, and what he finds.
Okay, I'm gonna put the
is just
olive
an
in the
awful
thing.
Scene, something he did not expect. So his dad goes out there, right? Cool. So he lets
Olive
himself in,
oil.
and when he first
High
walks
quality
in,
olive
that's when
oil.
he finds the young woman
gonna
lying
make
face
high
down.
quality? It's
on
just gonna make
Sam's
fucking
bed
regular
with a
olive oil.
gunshot
It's not gonna
wound
be
to
3-star olive
her
oil.
head. Some
It's
of
just
the
gonna be
clothes
regular
had
ass
been
olive
ripped
oil.
off. She was also wearing like a tiara.
That's a
It's just so
wasteful.
weird. But there was also a message that was written on her clothing. It was on the back of her sweatshirt. It said, quote, all yours, fuck you. I know. Creepy. And so Steve, obviously horrified, he calls 911 immediately, and he's just hysterical. Poor guy. I mean, any of us would be, right? I would hope. But there was no sign of Sam. It was odd. It was weird. So the young woman was identified as Julie. On her cell phone, police found text messages between Sam and Julie asking for her to come over. Back at Julie's house, police were questioning June about her missing daughter because they came over for the missing person report. So the police are already over there, you know, getting some information and whatnot. And then I guess, like, one of the police officers, they, like, step out. They go to the police car, and, like, they're in there for quite a bit. And the police officer comes back, and June, Julie's mom, said that he looked different, he sounded different, and to her, something wasn't right, you know? The only thing
Why
that
are you
June could
sad,
think
Mech
was,
Mech?
oh gosh, you know,
Is it
was
'cause you're a
Julie in
cutie
car
muffin?
accident? Did something happen to her?
Did you get your
Sadly,
beard caught in the
officers told her
toaster?
that they found Julie in Sam's
might be sad.
apartment, and all June could say was like, no, that wasn't her, no. But it was Julie. Police found Julie's purse and her ID at the scene. To police, it seemed pretty cut and dry, a pretty cut and dry case, I should say. It seemed that Sam had raped and killed Julie and was now like on the run. Despite the family's claims that the relationship was platonic, detectives wondered if the message on Julie's sweatshirt was alluding to some kind of love triangle gone wrong. But the fact that Sam wasn't there made detectives and police think that he was just on the run. Sam also had a bit of a criminal past. At the age of 18, Sam had gotten mixed up with like
They
a
want
rough
some
crowd
beans?
that included different members
Beans, bricks.
of different gangs, I guess.
Mortar,
and in this group,
salt,
there
clay,
was a person
glass.
murdered, and then there was like another person
Okay.
who was killed in connection
Go with
to that.
solid
So
lumber, 'cause we
Sam,
have a ton
along
of
with
it.
23 other people,
Rock
they were
salt,
arrested and
cement,
charged with murder. Sam
bricks,
was eventually acquitted,
bean.
but
I don't know
with this
about the
little
white
brush
paint. Do
with
we
the
have white
law
paint?
confirmed police's suspicion that Sam was probably
baby.
responsible for Julie's murder. So his father understood that Sam is going to be the primary suspect because, I mean, hello, Julie is found in his apartment, murdered. Steve understands, like, okay, it's not looking good for Sam, but he had this gut feeling that Sam was not the one who did it. So Steve took it upon himself
Okay,
to prove
so
his
it was
son's innocence because the
beans.
police are already like, okay, Sam's the one who did this in his apartment. He
Beans.
texted her to come over. Sam did it. His father is like, heck no, I'm gonna do some investigating myself and make sure and
beans.
prove that Sam didn't do it. I feel like I made that way more complicated than it needed to be, but you get it.
Beans.
So Steve starts calling all of Sam's friends. None of them had seen or heard from Sam. They all wanted to help though, so they were like, here's some phone numbers
Mortar.
of different friends to call.
Bricks.
And Steve called those
Clay.
friends. One of those people that he
Solid
spoke
lumber.
to was
What else
Sam's
was it?
neighbor who lived in the same apartment complex as Sam. There was a guy by the name of Daniel Wozniak. So he calls him up. He's like, yeah, I saw
I don't have white
Sam on
paint. I got
Friday,
green
but I really
paint.
haven't heard from him since. On May 24th, Steve was able to get access to Sam's bank account records, and immediately he noticed that there was money being withdrawn
else
from
was it?
one bank on 3 different days. It was being
I can't remember.
withdrawn from an ATM
Stick all this
next
shit
to
up there
a
first.
pizzeria
I
in
can't remember
Long
what else they
Beach,
wanted.
not far from Sam's apartment.
But I
There
remembered
was
a couple.
also a charge from the restaurant on the card as well, so somebody was eating some pizza and getting some cash.
The
you know?
process is
Very
a slow
suspicious.
one.
So Steve
But as
goes
soon as
down
I can
to
do
the
things.
location of the bank and the pizza place, and he's just waiting outside to see if anyone, someone, is coming, going. I don't know. Maybe he's looking for Sam. Maybe Sam's around or his car. He's just thinking if his son is on the run, maybe he could at least spot him, talk some common sense into him before everything came crashing down. You know. So he's just sitting there. He's
Oh, I
waiting.
made lovers with
Unfortunately,
him.
like,
I'm
no
gonna
one
have his
knows the son
babies.
of Sam. So on Tuesday morning, on Tuesday morning, Steve called back some of Sam's friends, and when he called up Dan Wozniak again, this time it was kind of strange because Dan changed his story. Like, you know, if you're not lying about something, then your story doesn't need to change. So this time Dan said that Sam told him he was having family problems. Now, Steve knew right off the bat that this Dan guy was lying because Steve and Sam, father-son, extremely close, okay? Their relationship
Weird.
super tight. As far as he knew, there was no issue going on between him and his son, nor with any of the family members. So,
Lumber.
try again. You know, like, that's not right, Dan. Dan? No.
Oh, wait.
Steve's little detective work got his senses
Cement.
tingling when he realized that out of all the phone numbers he had called, Dan's phone number was the only one that
Bricks.
had a Long Beach area code. The same area, or the same area code of the
Beans.
ATM and the pizza restaurant.
Oh, wait.
So it doesn't like
White
say
that-
a
rock
lot,
salts,
but
that's
at the
what it
same
was.
time,
Rock
it,
salts.
it like got that little gut feeling.
Rock
of,
salts and
like,
white dye.
Name right. So police were
Where did I
able
get
to
the
get
white dye?
security
Where-
footage.
wait, how many white
from
dyes
the
did he need?
ATM
Just one?
machine. So the security tape showed that
A bucket of
someone
white
went to
dye.
the ATM machine, right? It was a young white male, somewhere between the age of 17 to 20. They were wearing a baseball hat, using Sam's card to withdraw money from Sam's bank account. It was shown that whoever this person was not Sam. So it was actually this kid named Wesley. They're like, great, who the heck is this Wesley guy? So once they're able to ID who this person is, police are able to get the whole shebang. 2 police cars, an FBI van, and a helicopter were all dispatched to go to this Wesley guy's
That
house,
was over
believing
here?
that he was helping hide
No, that's
Sam
paint.
or maybe helped
Or
Sam
perfume,
some
I mean,
kind
I
of
need
way.
paint.
Now when they show up to Wesley's, he's like, whoa, 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 hold on. You know, like, this is a little much.
No.
Wesley was like, you got the wrong guy. So obviously he's freaked out, like, I don't know what the heck is going on. This guy, Dan Wozniak, he approached me and asked me if I could
sells
withdraw
him
money from
paint?
his bank for him because he was busy or something and he couldn't get the money himself. And that's
General
why
store?
I went to the ATM. So investigators are like, well, how do you know this Dan guy? And Wesley was like, oh, Dan? Yeah, Dan and I know each other way back when, from like middle school. Dan was a part of some local theater group where his mom was a teacher. And that Dan was a fantastic guy, just one of those guys that you wanted to be around because he was so kind and he could make everybody and anybody laugh. So when Dan asked him if he could do this favor, Wesley had no reason to believe that there was any issue, you know? Well,
Damn it.
both Wesley and Steve
How do you make
were
white
pointing the
paint?
fingers at Dan.
I gotta
Police
pull that
charged
thing out of the
Dan
bin.
with accessory to murder of Julie and arrested him in hopes of Dan giving them information on where like Sam was at. So Dan was getting married in a few days, and he was actually having his bachelor party when police came in and arrested him. I know. He probably thought like the police were hired strippers or something. Nay. It was a real deal. He was like, am I under arrest, officer? I've been real bad. And like he was really actually under arrest. So Dan gets arrested. Now who's this Dan guy? Well, let me tell you. Dan Wozniak was a 26-year-old community theater actor and a part of the local theater company. People often described him as a super nice guy. He was good looking and very personable. Now he was engaged. His fiance, her name was Rachel Buffett. They had met each other when Dan was doing a play. She was also an actress and she worked as a Disney princess at Disneyland. The two had fell in love, and in 2008 Dan proposed. During questioning, Dan repeatedly told cops that he had nothing to do with anything, but over time, his story started to change. He did admit to police that he had
I have lots of
manipulated
glass rocks.
Wesley into making the ATM withdrawals from Sam's account. He said it was for Sam, but then later, Dan told police that Sam confessed to Dan that he had killed Julie in his apartment upstairs. Now, Dan said that Sam threatened him.
No,
and
wait, I gotta
if
go
he
back
didn't
to the
help him
stupid thing.
escape, you know, he's gonna come for him next or something. But Dan swore up and down that he had nothing to do with Julie's murder. We don't believe you, Dan. We don't believe you. Your story's changed like a whole bunch. So during interrogation, so they asked Dan, hey, can you give us some spit? You know, we're gonna do some DNA testing. And then Dan all of a sudden was like, whoa, actually, I got a different story for you, you know? Hey, new story. I hate people. This time he claimed he stopped by Sam's apartment and he discovered Julie's body, okay? Saying when he went inside, he saw 2 bullet holes in her head. Now, this was a little light bulb moment to police because, you see, you could only see 1 exit gunshot wound on Julie. The second gunshot wound was covered, sorry to get graphic, but it was like covered with like brain matter, and it was only discovered during the autopsy. So nobody even knew that there was 2. But Dan did, all of a sudden. Weird, you know? So with this information, it was clear that Dan must have been there when Julie was killed because nobody would know that. Dan, I look like a clown. Oh dear. Rachel, Dan's fiance, she was brought in for questioning, and her behavior was really odd. Now, there's a lot of debate around her because they brought her in and they're like, hey, you know, your fiance was under arrest for covering up a murder. Okay? Now, they thought it was strange because her reaction was just kind of like, oh, yeah? Weird. Like, she was not, it just was just like a normal day for her. Like, she wasn't shocked at all. And they were like, okay, well, if somebody got this information, wouldn't you be a little shocked that your fiance may be involved with some kind of murder situation? I mean, for Christ's sake, she's an actress. Couldn't she at least pretend to be a little shocked that her fiance may be involved with a murder? Instead, she was like, oh, weird. That's so crazy that he might be involved. But, okay, so strange. Now, she claimed... My face is so dry. Look, I need some hydration. So she claimed that she knew nothing, okay? But her story was all over the place. She was saying that she had not seen Sam at all. Then she later mentioned seeing a mystery friend at Sam's apartment. Her story just wasn't lining up. It just wasn't making sense. Something wasn't right, but they also just didn't know what. So Dan was arrested and he was sent in jail. Now he was able to make a phone call. That's how stupid this guy is. He's such an idiot, I swear to you. So he's able to make a phone call. He calls his fiance. Bing, 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 bing. Hello. You know, hey. So he calls up his fiance, Rachel. So he tells Rachel that, hold on. So Rachel tells Dan that she spoke to his brother Tim. That Tim told her that Dan had given him a backpack of evidence. In this backpack were shell casings from Julie's murder, Sam's wallet, Sam's ID, Sam's checkbook, and Sam's bloody clothes. So Dan gave all this stuff, so he put it in a backpack and then gave it to his brother Tim. And then Tim told Rachel on the phone. Now on the phone, Dan is begging her to not tell police about this evidence against him. And she's like, Dan, yeah, the prison that you're calling me from, all of their conversations are being recorded. So, okay, you know? He's just like, stupid. Sorry. He's an idiot. So she tells Dan over the phone that as soon as they get off the phone that she was calling detectives. And like you can hear in Dan's voice, he's just worried, scared. He sounds like a little baby. But also some believe that she was just saying that because she knew that the phone call was being recorded and she was kind of pretending like she didn't know. But that's up for debate, really. But Dan over here just sounds like a little bitch. If you're gonna murder somebody, the least you can do is instead of being a little bitch. So shortly after this phone call with his fiance, Dan said that he knew the jig was up. Okay? He just like knew it was over for him, so he asked to speak to the police. So they come in, they bring him in for questioning, or they bring him into the interrogation room, and then Dan said something no one expected. He told police, quote, he was crazy and that he did it. So police are like, can you please like clarify what you mean by you did it? Because, you know, we need more information, obviously. So Dan confessed to killing Julie and Sam. So where the hell was Sam? So this new information threw police for a loop because Sam was not on the run for Julie's murder at all. He was a victim himself. Now Dan's confession to the murders confirmed Steve's belief that his son was innocent all along, but it now was just going to bring like a lot of devastating news as to like what really happened. So Dan walked the police through everything. Dan said that he was desperate for money. He was behind on 2 months' rent and had an elaborate wedding coming up, and it was only weeks away. They also had planned a very elaborate honeymoon, and Dan simply just didn't have money to pull all of this off. But he didn't tell his fiancée this. She thought everything was rainbows and lollipops. Nay, nay. He didn't have any money. Dan knew that Sam had $60,000 in savings from combat pay. It was stored away from his days in the army, and at some point he mentioned it to Dan. So Dan's plan was to kill Sam and get the money from Sam's bank account. Use it for his wedding and his honeymoon. Great. No one will know. I'll get away scot-free. What a stupid plan. Dan told police that he texted Sam that he needed help moving things at the theater in Fullerton where he was performing. Sam was like, sure, I'll help you out. And he arrives to the theater. Dan's like, hey, will you come up with me to the attic to help me move something really quick? It's heavy. Can't do it myself. Sam was like, sure. So they go up to the attic. They're in this like area. Dan's like, it's this thing. I don't really remember what it was, but Sam bends down to pick whatever it was up. That's when Dan shot him in the back of his head. Now, he said that after the first shot, Sam was still alive and he was asking for help, saying that something hit him in the head. It felt like an electric shock. So instead of helping, Dan reloaded and fired again, this time killing him in the theater attic. Now, Dan leaves him there. He goes home before returning to the theater with Rachel for that evening's performance of the show 9, which they were both starring in. Yeah, so the show went on. They're performing on stage, as one does. I don't know what they... boop it up, boop, 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 you know? And Dan is acting out as if nothing happened. It was like a great performance, they said, whatever. Meanwhile, Sam's body was like right above them in the attic. Beep it up, boop, boop. Like, what? What is wrong with people? I don't understand. So then Dan told investigators that he killed Julie to cover his own tracks. He created this elaborate story that he wanted to frame Sam as killing Julie, and then he fled. So after killing Sam, that's when he took Sam's phone. He texted Julie to come over to Sam's apartment and said like, oh, I'm having family problems. So Julie goes to the apartment. Dan came up to her. He was like accidentally just ran into her. And he was like, oh my God, that's so funny. Like, I'm here too. Sam just called me and said like, he's going through some stuff, but I have a key and I can let you into his apartment. He really had to fucking plan this shit, you know? So he has the key to the Sam's apartment. Julie's there. He opens up the apartment. They both go inside. Dan lets Julie in. They hang out for a bit. When they were in the apartment, Dan called over to Julie and like, hey, come here. Because he's like in Sam's bedroom. He's like, hey, come here. Come over here. I see something really weird. Come here. And so Julie comes over and he's like, Dan's like, oh my God, look. Over there by the bed. There's something over there. You should go check it out. Julie goes over there and she's leaning over to whatever it is Dan said he saw. And when she's leaning over, Dan shoots Julie in the back of the head, and then he staged the crime to make it look like a rape to throw the police off. I just hate him. Because, like, okay, what was just so... He's doing all of this. This is the most selfish person ever, right? Because he's doing all of this just so he can get money for a wedding. Why don't you get a damn job, Dan and Rachel? Why don't you guys get some fucking work or something instead of get married? Bunch of losers. I hate them. So then, as if it doesn't get any more fucked up, because it totally does. So then, the next day, after the murders, Dan said that he went back to the theater. He went up to the attic, and he dismembered Sam's body. What in the fucked up is going on around here? Dan said that he dismembered Sam's body, which is like a little extreme, but Dan was saying, as if this justifies it in some way, that he couldn't get him out of the attic without people noticing, right? Like, if he's carrying a dead body out, it might be a little obvious. So he's like, let me dismember him, cut him up. That makes way more sense to me in my dumbass brain. And then Dan told police that he remembers smiling and laughing because he had just reached a point where he couldn't even believe what he was doing anymore. So he just found the whole thing hilarious. Anyways, so he ended up leaving Sam's torso and other limbs in the attic because he just couldn't take it down yet. So he disposed of Sam's head, hands, and tattooed forearm in the El Dorado Park in Long Beach. He tells this to police, and detectives end up going out to the park and to the theater, and they find Sam's remains on what would have been his 27th birthday. Talk about fucked up. Sadly, though, animals had gotten to pieces of his body in the park, and one of his hands was never found. Sam was given a hero's burial with full military honors, and Daniel Wozniak was officially charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. During the trial, a witness named Chris Williams came forward and told the police that he had been at Daniel's and Rachel's apartment the day Sam was murdered. He said that he loaned the couple some money and was there to collect it. Dan must have known about Sam's savings account and asked Sam for a loan so he could pay back Chris. So together they went to go pick up the cash while Chris stayed behind with Rachel. 3 hours later, Dan returned alone with $400 and gave it to Chris. Later, during questioning, Rachel maintained that Sam was still alive during this exchange. Both Rachel and Dan's brother Tim were arrested and charged with accessory after the fact. Tim Wozniak, Dan's brother, he pled guilty to being an accessory after the fact for hiding Dan's backpack full of the evidence, which included, again, the shell casings from Julie's murder, Sam's wallet, Sam's ID, his checkbook, and his bloody clothes. So he testified against his brother as a part of a plea agreement. Now, Dan's defense attorney was trying to shift the blame onto Rachel, the fiancée, saying that she was the one who wanted the expensive wedding, that she was the one who was smarter of the two, and she was involved. Many speculated, how did she not know what happened? When she was brought in for questioning, her reaction was off. Like, things just didn't add up with Rachel. But she stood by the fact that she was innocent, that she did not know anything. She didn't know. She would later go on the Dr. Phil show, and she was like giving an exclusive interview while she was out in bail. She was like, I didn't know anything, not a damn thing, and I don't know, you know. But she claimed that she too was a victim of Dan's, saying that she had wished she never met him. Like, I want to believe her. When you watch the interviews and stuff, you want to believe her, but at the same time, it's like, something ain't right. Something ain't right. Something is not right. I get accused a lot in the comment section of being a victim blamer, because sometimes I'll call out people like this, where I'm like, I don't know. I don't think I'm a victim blamer. I just think something ain't right. That's it, you know? Like, damn. Anyways, so detectives also interviewed an ex-boyfriend of Rachel's who said that when Rachel was drunk, so Rachel was drunk one night, she was like, oh my god, and she accidentally thought that the ex-boyfriend was Daniel, her fiance, and she blurted out, I told you to burn the body. This is what the ex-boyfriend testified. Now, there's an added level of creepiness to this statement, because behind the theater where Sam's murder took place was an old military hospital with a morgue and an incinerator. Rachel, she continued to deny that she had anything to do with the murder. After 6 years of trials, the DA did not have enough evidence to support the murder charge, but Rachel was convicted of accessory to murder for lying to police and sentenced to only 32 months in prison. Sam's father, Steve, he feels that justice was not served. He thought that Rachel was let off easy and she should have been charged with murder as well. You know what? I guess there's really not much you can charge her with, because there was really no evidence linking her to the murder, unless Dan wanted to come out and take her down with him, you know? So I guess, yeah. Sorry, I'm just like really thinking about it now. I'm like, as much as I want to believe that she's involved, there's really no evidence. Besides her saying like you should have burned the body. I feel like that's, but you can't accuse someone on that. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. So they ended up having like 200 hearings over the span of 6 years and only 2 hours of jury deliberation. Daniel Wozniak was found guilty on 2 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to capital punishment in September of 2016. Currently, Daniel Wozniak is still waiting on death row for his sentence to be carried out, with the likelihood of that happening anytime soon is like slim to none because, you know, there have been challenges over California's death penalty, and no one has been executed since 2006. And there are over 750 inmates on death row at San Quentin, where Dan is sitting. So the chances of him actually, you know, he's probably going to die in prison, which I believe that's unfair. I believe that's worse than the death penalty. Do you think that? I need to know. Do you think that? Because some people are all about the death penalty, and I'm like, look, sitting for the rest of your damn life in prison, that to me sounds way worse than the death penalty. But what the hell do I know? I'm just some girl on YouTube in a box, remember? I'm in a fucking box. Anyways, Rachel and Tim have both finished their sentences and just continue to live their life. The end. This is what happens when you are an idiot. What a dumbass. What a selfish piece of garbage. He killed 2 people so he can have money to get married? Huh? Your wedding is not that special, babe. No, it ain't. I'm sorry. Go get hitched. Go to Vegas. There you go. Now you're not in prison. Don't be an idiot. I hate people. I cannot believe. I just don't understand how one day you can snap and just murder 2 people and then dismember them in the attic. Like, there was no red flags with this guy? Really? People stress me out. And you know what's sad? Both of them are actresses or actors, and they couldn't even act. They suck. Anyways, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts down below. I don't know if there are any thoughts, because I feel like what can you add to this? It's just an awful story. I don't know what we can take away from this other than, I'm sorry that people freaking suck, man. Julie and Sam seemed like just really great people that were just taken, and it's not fair. For what? For someone's wedding? Oh, God. How dumb. What an idiot. Oh, God. What a stupid man. This Dan Wozniak guy. I'm sorry. But he's stupid. And I hope he rots in prison forever. And if the wife was involved, karma. Karma is real. It really is, ma'am. And it'll get you. But only if you did it. If you didn't do it, then you should be fine. So that one's on you, girl. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts down below. Don't forget about my little bead earrings. I'll leave it down in the description box. I think I like this look. I really messed up on my eyes, but it came out cute, right?
And still no
Anyways,
garlic.
thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a wonderful
I want
rest
that
of
coconut.
your day. You made good choices. Please make good choices.
No!
And I'll be seeing you guys. Hi, friends. How are you today? My name is Bailey Sarian, and today is Monday, which means it's Murder, Mystery, and Makeup Monday. If you are new here, hi. My name is Bailey
I should
Sarian,
make
and on
soup.
Mondays I sit down and I talk about a true crime story that's been heavy on my noggin, and I do my makeup at the same time. If you're interested in true crime and you like makeup, I would highly suggest you subscribe because I'm here for you on Mondays. Except for like the last 3. So sorry, you guys. Okay, listen. So the last 3 Mondays I skipped. I'm so sorry. It was not technically planned, and then it just kind of happened. I've been working on something else that's soon to come, a series on my channel that you will soon be seeing. It's like all boiling down to like right now. So it's like all this stuff, and I'm like a one-man show, baby. Okay, I'm trying my best out here. I'm just trying my damn best, and I've learned that I can't do it all, and that's okay. But I'm here now, and I appreciate you, and I appreciate your patience with me. So before we jump into today's story, we do have a sponsor, so let's get into that really quick. Hi, I'm coming in here today to tell you that today's video is sponsored by Casetify. What is Casetify, you ask? Well, Casetify is a tech accessory brand specializing in unique and protective phone cases, AirPod cases, watch bands, and many other tech accessories. I'm out of breath. Casetify cases are slim and protective. Their impact cases are engineered with a 2-layer construction of Chi-Tech and drop test approved for drops up to 6.6 feet. Much more protective than those cheaper alternatives you find like on Amazon and whatnot, you know? Yeah. There are so many different designs to choose from, so you can pick your favorite color or print and match your phone to your own personal style. Isn't that fun? You can also add your name or monogram for the truly custom case. My initials are BS. So, Casetify lets you have the best of both worlds, protection with personality. It's like a condom, but for your phone, you know, like protect it. Casetify's antimicrobial coating keeps your case germ-free, killing 99% of bacteria. They're also partially made of recycled plastic, so you can feel good about your phone looking great. I personally have a Casetify addiction. I just love them all. They are so fun. This is the one I'm currently using. I love cows. I think cows are just so precious. And I'm precious, therefore I am cow. There are so many different cases to choose from. You're definitely gonna have a hard time choosing one, okay? Right now you can go to casetify.com/BaileySarian today and get 50% off your new favorite phone case. That's right, baby. Go to casetify.com/BaileySarian and get 15% off your new favorite phone case. A big thank you to Casetify for partnering with me on today's video, but most of all, big thank you to you guys. Without you, I wouldn't be here right now.
fucking bucket out.
And that's
Because I'm all out of clay.
And we're back! So before we jump into today's story, I should add a disclaimer. Warning, the following presentation is intended for mature audiences. It contains graphic descriptions of crime scenes, adult dialogue, and strong language. Viewer discretion is advised. So, today's story is... It's a little weird. It's not weird, it's just like, I just don't understand people. I don't think I will ever understand people. Do you understand people? No, I didn't think so. Like, what the hell is going on sometimes, you know? Let me clip my hair back. If you're ever curious as to what I'm using, I will list it down in the description box down below. So let's get into today's story. Oh my god, I didn't do my eyebrows. Oops. Who am I? Oh dear. Bobby Jo Stinnett. Do you know her? Do you know the story? Well, let me tell you. She grew up in Graham, Missouri. Now, it was said that she was quiet, she was super kind, she was a really good student, and she had a love of horses and dogs. She and her husband, who went by the name Zeb, his real name was like Zebulon. They were high school sweethearts, and both of them had graduated from, I'm gonna butcher this, Nottoway Holt High School in 2000. Anywho, so at the age of 23, Bobby Jo, she was 8 months pregnant, and this was gonna be their first child. So both of them, they're living in this like tiny farming town called Skidmore, Missouri. Now, Skidmore had like one restaurant, a few streets are paved, and they have a population around 250 people. Yeah, it's small. And Bobby Jo and everyone in the community, they all knew each other. So Bobby Jo, she worked at the Kawasaki manufacturing plant, and that was in the nearby town of Maryville. She and Zeb, they also ran a dog breeding business called Happy Haven Farms out of their home. So on December 15th, 2004, she met a woman named Darlene Fisher in an online chat room. It was like a rat terrier chat room. The chat room was called Ratter Chatter. So Darlene and Bobby Jo, they were chatting on Ratter Chatter. It's kind of funny, but it's not, because it's like a sad story, but like Ratter Chatter. So Darlene was interested in possibly buying a terrier puppy from their most recent litter. So Bobby Jo gave Darlene her address, and they coordinated a time that they were going to meet for Darlene to come over the next day. So they're all excited. Not really, but like, you know. So on the 16th, Bobby Jo's mother, her name was Becky Harper, she stopped by her daughter's house to like check in on her, and she walks in and she finds her daughter lying on the dining room floor in a pool of her own blood. Okay, Bobby
Who
Jo
fucking else blood would it be?
Becky
Like, just,
immediately
nope.
calls the police.
In her
She's
own
just
blood.
hysterical.
No.
She described her daughter's
A
wounds
pool
as
of her
looking
own
as if
blood
her
and not
stomach
anybody
exploded.
else's?
Paramedics
My
were
God.
unsuccessful in their attempts to revive Bobby Jo, and she was pronounced dead at St. Francis Hospital in Maryville. So an Amber Alert was set out for a red Toyota Corolla that was seen in the driveway of Bobby Jo's house, and it was issued out in hopes of enlisting help from the general public. So they're asking the general public, we need your help finding this car. And initially, the Amber Alert was denied because it's never been used before in the case of an unborn child. Remember, Bobby Jo was pregnant, and when she was found, the baby was missing. So they're sending out this Amber Alert, but there's no description of the victim that's missing, the baby. I mean, it's never been done before, so they don't. Do you know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? I hope that makes
Newborn,
sense.
freshly
But
scooped from
they
its
put one out.
mama.
Congressman Sam Graves intervened, and the alert request was granted. So they did send it out in hopes that somebody had some information as to at least like had anyone seen this car? Baby's missing. They don't know what the baby looks like, but I know like
Looks
how
like a
do you even
fucking
solve
fresh
this? I
baby.
don't know. I guess like did anyone show up with randomly with a baby who doesn't have a baby? I guess that would be the biggest clue. This is something of like your worst nightmares. I'm sorry, but it is. To be pregnant and to have somebody not only murder you, but take your unborn child? Like, what in the world? What? I just can't believe that there's people out there like this. This to me is just like, my brain cannot compute this. It just can't. It just really can't. I don't know. Anyways, so back at the crime scene, there was no sign of forced entry. This told investigators that Bobby Joe, she most likely knew her attacker because whoever it was, she let them in. And then there was also evidence that a gruesome and violent struggle had taken place. So she let the person in, but things just got real bad. You know what I'm saying? It was clear that Bobby Joe had been strangled from behind, and then she fell unconscious. Blood on Bobby Joe's feet indicated that she at some point regained consciousness after her stomach had been cut open. I know, sorry, kind of graphic. So there was enough blood on the floor to come up between her toes and soak into her toenails. They also found like blondish brown hair in her closed fist, indicating that Bobby Joe put up like a pretty good fight against her attacker. And I've mentioned this before in a previous video, not that I'm like Jesus or something, but I pray to whatever you believe in. This never happens to you, right? None of us. But if somebody's attacking you, this is so awful, but like maybe if you think you're not going to get out, make sure to scratch and to fight your attacker and get their DNA under your nails.
Solid
I'm
lumber,
talking just
pepper,
claw the shit
twine,
out of
tough
them
cloth,
and get their
yarn,
DNA under your
supple
nails,
lumber,
because if those people,
thread.
you're gonna be found with the DNA that I'm about to scratch off
Solid
of
and
you.
supple.
Okay, so again, I pray that this never happens
what was
to
it
you,
again?
right? But scratch the shit out
Lumber,
of people, attackers.
pepper,
Okay,
twine,
so
that,
yeah, she
that.
put up a fight. She got hair,
Wool
the
yarn.
attacker's hair. So like that's good, I guess. Anyways, Bobby Joe also had cuts on her hands, which was from defending herself, and then she was also hit on the bridge of her nose and the right side of her head during the struggle. Eventually, Bobby Joe's attacker got the better of her, strangling her to death before extracting and making off with Bobby Joe's premature baby. I don't know what the hell is going on around here. It's terrifying. So Nottoway County Sheriff Randy Strong said that the scene they found that day was so bloody, he and his four colleagues are still traumatized by it to this day. Can I ask something that I always forget to Google, but I've always been curious? For anyone out there who's like a detective or something and sees these really awful crime scenes, do they offer you guys like therapy and stuff?
Yes,
or do they,
mandatory.
Or do they not? I really hope they do. I would
Yep.
think they would, but
Yes.
I don't have a lot of
They do.
faith in the system taking care of their employees. But I could be wrong, but I hope they
Solid
do.
lumber,
'Cause I don't know how
supple
you could just
lumber,
be normal after
twine.
seeing all this stuff. Do you know what I'm saying? Anyways. So, of course, word over on the Ratter Chatter
Woolen
forum about Bobby Joe's
yarn.
brutal murder was
Tough
spreading like
cloth.
wildfire. People
Pepper is the
were
other one,
talking.
right?
They were Ratter chattering it up. One of the
Pepper?
members actually came forward and contacted the police because they remembered the day before the murder, a woman named Darlene had contacted Bobby Joe about buying a puppy. I mean, what are the odds, you know? So luckily this person did the right thing. So this woman had come forward and given police the information about Darlene. Good for her, you know? With this information, police quickly tracked Darlene's IP address to a home out in Melbourne, Kansas that belonged to Lisa and Kevin Montgomery. Bobby Joe and Lisa met earlier that April through dog show events, and they connected through a shared love of dogs. They had like ongoing interactions in the same online rat terrier chat room, Ratter Chatter. Lisa had confided to Bobby Joe that she too was pregnant, leading the two women to like chatting online and exchanging emails about their pregnancies and just really connecting over their love of animals and also just being pregnant with their first child, like, you know, bonding. The next day, December 17th, police went out to Melbourne hoping to question Lisa about Bobby
Oh,
Joe.
I forgot the
When
tough
they
thread.
arrived,
That was
they
the other
noticed
one.
that outside their farmhouse home was a car that matched the description of the one listed on the Amber Alert. Now, a red Toyota Corolla is pretty common, but, you know, it's still questionable. So they go inside and they find Lisa just kind of laying around. She's watching TV and she's holding a baby named Abigail. And they notice that this baby Abigail had a cut over her eye. This psycho-ass lady, I swear to you. So Lisa told the police the same story she told her husband the day before, that she delivered the infant girl at a nearby birthing center in Topeka. And then that morning, her and her husband, Kevin, they went around town showing off the newborn at a diner, at the local bank, at a courthouse, at the convenience store where Lisa worked. Just going on a little parade, like, look at this baby we got, like, it's mine. Very bizarre. Just, I don't know what's wrong with people. I don't know. This is a different kind of sick. So when questioned, Kevin admitted that he wasn't there for the birth of this baby Abigail. Lisa had called him asking him to pick her up and the baby at Long John Silver's in Topeka, Kansas. Yeah, Long John Silver's, okay. And that, however, he didn't think it was strange because he knew she didn't like hospitals and doctors. I don't know, you guys. I don't know. I'm just here telling you the story, but I don't freaking know. So later she asked to speak to officers in private. So she's like, I don't need my husband here. He doesn't need to hear this. Can I talk to you in private? So she tells her husband, like, go away for a second. I need to talk to them. And she tells the police that she had actually given birth to Abigail at home. So it was her baby. And after she gave birth, she took the placenta and she threw it into a nearby river because that makes lots of sense, right? So that's what she had done. I guess that was supposed to be believable. Now, things of course weren't adding up and they bring Lisa down to the sheriff's office for more questioning. So they questioned her for like an hour or so and Lisa's story just fell apart and then she confessed. She told them that she had actually driven the 130-mile trip as a
Fucking
test
garlic.
run on the 15th before traveling back on the 16th to murder Bobby Joe. Lisa said that she was using a cord. She strangled Bobby Joe and having spent time watching videos online of like home births and C-section procedures, she felt confident enough to like use a sharp kitchen knife to cut her baby out. What the hell? I don't know. So Lisa obviously was charged with kidnapping, which resulted in the death of Bobby Joe, and the baby was safely recovered and returned to Zeb, who renamed her Victoria Joe. So with all this information, who the heck was Lisa Marie Montgomery? Her middle name is
Fucking
Marie. Whose middle
garlic.
name isn't Marie? Everyone's middle name is Marie. Why?
Mine's not.
I need to know. But who is Lisa
Neither of
Montgomery?
mine are.
Well, it turns out she actually has a very sad story. It doesn't mean that she shouldn't be held accountable for what she did, but I think, you know, she had a really awful life and it makes sense. Okay, look, the whole like thing when I do these videos, I like to figure out like where these killers and bad people come from because I think it actually makes more sense as to why they did what they did. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people confuse that with me like trying to make you feel bad for these people. And like you're allowed to feel bad for these people, but I think it makes you understand why they do the things they do. And that's something I'm always personally curious. Like what makes somebody this freaking crazy, you know? Because you're not just born like this. Where does it come from? And that's where I am just so fascinated when it comes to these stories. Anyways, so let me do my brows. Okay, so who's Lisa? Well, Lisa, she was born on February 27th, 1968 in Melbourne, Kansas. Her mother,
Waiting for
Judy
coconuts to
Schnarcher-
grow.
I don't even know how to say her last name. Something like that. Anyways, she was addicted to alcohol, okay? Which caused Lisa to be born with permanent brain damage. So don't drink when you're pregnant. Step one. Thank you. Lisa's father was in the military and he just like wasn't around much, apparently, allegedly. Lisa and her half-sister Diane, they were raised in a home where physical, emotional, and sexual abuse from Judy and her boyfriends was like an everyday routine. Sadly, they were beaten with brooms and belts and just really cruel punishments like taping their mouths shut or putting them out in the snow naked were just like normal things that they did to their children because they're sick people. Diane later on in life would describe Judy as manipulative and just plain evil. Just, awful person. She would go on to say that she enjoyed torturing the people around her and she got a joy out of it. I just don't understand how you could do that. I really just don't. It's so sad. So at the age of 8, Lisa's half-sister Diane was
Calm.
removed from the home by social services, and she was whisked away to foster care. Now Lisa at the time was only 4, and she was left behind with her mother and her
making those
stepfather.
toys.
I'm not really sure as
I like
to why
making them
she
with
stayed and
raisins
the other
as
one was taken
tarts.
away, but that's just what happened. His other children later confirmed that their father was a violent alcoholic, and Lisa was allegedly beaten and raped by her stepfather and also by his friends starting at the age of 11. So they would be like, the parents, the grown adults here would be like, come on over, I have a child that you can take advantage of and do whatever you want with. Like, how sick are you? I don't get, what the fuck? So at the age of 13, while living in Sperry, Oklahoma, Lisa's stepfather built a special room in his trailer where he could attack her privately. Yeah, he would also store his liquor there, and Lisa turned to that. She would start drinking alcohol in hopes to find some kind of escape from it all. So when Lisa was 14, her mother discovered that the abuse was going on. Now, as if this story cannot get any worse, and I'm sorry for laughing, I'm just so uncomfortable because her mother discovers that she's being abused, right? Her
Egg
mother
sandwich.
bursts into the room when she's being abused by her stepfather, like during one of the attacks in the trailer. Now, instead of being like, oh my god, my daughter, like, how could you do this? Let me help my daughter. No. Instead, she threatened Lisa with a gun because she believed, her mom believed that Lisa had seduced her husband and Lisa was the one to be blamed here. Lisa described it as like the most terrifying night of her life. Not only that, she just felt extremely alone because nobody had her back. Nobody was looking out for her. How the hell do you grow up and be a normal person, you know? And again, I'm not trying to excuse what she does in her life because what she did was awful. She should not have done that. But like, God, this poor girl. Oh my God, I just want to like punch her family in the face. It was also around this time that her mother started trafficking her. She was allowing anybody with money, handymen, electricians, plumbers, come on over, sexually abuse my daughter Lisa in exchange for work on the house. We've got some wires up there I need fixing. I don't have any money, but I got a daughter. Mother of the goddamn year award goes to not her. Wow. So this is all going on for a very long time. And Lisa, she ends up confiding in her cousin, telling him that men would tie her up, beat her, urinate on her, and for some reason the cousin, I don't know how old the cousin was at the time, but the cousin never did anything about it. And I think a lot of us kind of can get angry at that, like, why wouldn't you do anything? But when you're a kid, not all kids, but a lot of kids are like terrified of the adults in their life. They don't feel confident enough to speak out, you know? They don't have like a safe space to speak out. So I think that's why the cousin didn't say anything. Maybe it was happening to them, I don't know. Shit. So Judy, Lisa's mom, ended up divorcing her second husband, and Lisa testified about the sexual assaults during the divorce proceedings. Now, the judge in the case, he went off on Judy for not reporting the abuse, yet the judge never reported the abuse either. So there's just a lot of fuck-ups going on. Right? So at one point, Lisa tried to escape the chaotic home by marrying her stepbrother. His name was Carl Bowman in 1986, and she was only 18 at the time. She saw it as like her way out, but the relationship was not the escape from violence like she was hoping it would be, because this guy was just as bad as all the other ones. So at one point, one of Lisa's brothers found a home movie of Carl raping and beating Lisa. He described it as violent, like a scene out of a horror movie. He was just absolutely sick from watching it, and yet had no idea what to do or how to talk to Lisa about it. So friends and family, they did notice that Lisa had a tendency to slip into like a world of her own, which could easily been, which probably was a sign of a mental illness, like her disconnecting. But they just thought that she was like a daydreamer. She's just a daydreamer. Lisa and Carl, they had 4 children together in a very short period of time. It was like bang, 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 4 kids. And according to Carl, Lisa loved the attention she got when she was pregnant. It's like everybody seemed to cater to her. Makes sense, because I've heard this before from like other women who are pregnant. Like, you get a lot of attention when you're pregnant. It's something you never really think about. I've never been pregnant, so but I could see that, you know, and she just loved that. Anyways, is what I'm getting at. She loved
Sorry.
the
I
attention
gotta take
she
that
was
fucking egg
getting when she
sandwich
was
back to the
pregnant.
town hall.
And then in 1990, when their final child was born, 2 months premature, doctors feared that Lisa would not be able to carry another pregnancy to term. So they recommended that she get her tubes tied. Now, Lisa was like really hesitant to do it. She didn't want to get her tubes tied because she wanted to have more kids. But her stepbrother, aka husband, and her mom told her that she needed to do it and like force the procedure upon her. So she ended up going through with it. Lisa ends up agreeing to the procedure to get her tubes tied. But she was bummed. She was devastated. She wanted to have more kids. I don't think because she actually liked the child. I think because she liked being pregnant. Which, like, girl, you could have just gotten one of those, like, fake bellies and just worn that forever, right? So after the procedure, Lisa ends up claiming 2 different times that she was pregnant. And Carl, her husband, or stepbrother, or whatever he is, he's like, you're not pregnant. There's no way. Like, you're lying. You got your tubes tied. You're not pregnant. And Carl is just sick of her shit. So he ends up divorcing her in 1993. Now, somehow, the two of them, they end up, like, making amends and falling in love again or something. And they get remarried in 1994, and then in 1998 the two of them break up for good when Lisa took the 4 children to live with Kevin Montgomery, this new man. Kevin had 3 children of his own and he lived with his parents, and 2 years later, in the year 2000, Lisa and Kevin got married. So during her marriage to Kevin, she claimed to be pregnant 3 different times, the last time being in 2004 with a due date of January 16th. So during these quote-unquote pregnancies, Lisa dressed in maternity clothes and even told people of like her upcoming due dates. Kevin was unaware that she actually got her tubes tied, so he believed her each time she told him that she was pregnant. I mean, he had no reason to believe like she would be lying to him. And Lisa eventually had to tell Kevin that she lost the baby. The first time she told Kevin that she had an abortion in New Mexico, and then the second time she told him that there was something wrong with the baby and she miscarried and had the body donated to science. Now, Kevin, what's he gonna say? I don't know, nothing. He's got nothing to say. He's like, okay, because Kevin's former wife said that she was skeptical when she heard about Lisa's most recent pregnancy, and that Kevin, he just had really like poor social skills and he was easily manipulated. So Carl, her ex-husband, planned on exposing her lies when taking her to court in order to gain custody of the 2 of their 4 children together. The custody hearing was set for January 25th, 2005, and he was just gonna tell them all like she's a liar, make her look bad so he could take the kids. So in November 2004, Lisa called Carl to tell him that she was going to prove him wrong, and she had an unusual air of confidence about her. Now, it's speculated that Lisa, alongside her long history of trauma and severe mental illness, felt extreme pressure and need to produce a baby in order to counter the charge of lying about her pregnancies and to stop Carl from getting custody of the children. So it's believed that's why she killed Bobby Joe, took Victoria Joe, the baby, out of... They keep calling it kidnapping, but is that kidnapping? Because in my mind, cutting a baby out of someone's stomach is not kidnapping. So that's why they believe this happened, because she needed to produce a baby for the trial, you know? So at a pre-trial hearing, a neuropsychologist testified that head injuries that Lisa had sustained some years earlier kind of damaged the part of her brain that controls aggression. And Lisa's original legal team met for dinner to discuss the case. There were many challenges that they faced. Lisa had drawn global headlines when federal prosecutors accused her of strangling Bobby Joe to death, slicing open her belly, and kidnapping the unborn baby. And there was really little to no room for doubt that Lisa committed the crime because she was arrested while cradling the baby in her arms. You know, like, this lady's just insane. So the debate at dinner was sparked by the team fighting amongst themselves as to who would be in charge, not how they would handle the case. The relationships between the 3 lawyers soured, and they eventually all but one dropped off the case. The Judge Gary Fenner, he assigned John P. O'Connor and Frederick Dutchart to be Lisa's defense attorney. Some would even describe it as the dream team because like they just always won their cases. Like you would want these people on your side. But John, a former prosecutor, was Kansas City's most successful go-to criminal defense lawyer. Frederick had tried more than a dozen capital cases. He was also an attorney who had more clients sentenced to death in federal court than any defense lawyer in America. So this Frederick guy, he was extremely busy. He was extremely busy with another case. And at that time, he was only able to visit Lisa 3 times. And Lisa seemed to like really not trust men. For a good freaking reason. But Lisa really didn't trust him. She didn't trust men. So in order to develop like some kind of rapport with her, he ends up sending his wife, her name's Ryland, to visit her in prison. Now Ryland had no experience investigating death penalty cases. Her expertise was in horse therapy for autistic children, but she's on the case now. And she went
Autistic,
to
not
go visit
artistic,
Lisa 16
but
times.
thank you.
Her and
My
Lisa
child is
became
very artistic.
Close. So as Lisa's trial date approached in October of 2007, Frederick was convinced he could secure a not guilty verdict by suggesting that Bobby Joe was killed by Lisa's brother Tommy, and it was Tommy who gave his sister's baby to Lisa. That was the new plan. Now, unfortunately, just a few weeks before the trial, Tommy, he had an alibi. His alibi emerged. And at the time of Bobby Joe's murder, Tommy had been meeting with his probation officer. So that little situation, the plan to blame Tommy, wasn't gonna work for them. Sorry. Her family now believes she had been the one who decided to lay blame on her
Still no
brother, which
fucking garlic.
revoking their agreement to cooperate.
I need
The
garlic.
life-saving evidence of providing Lisa's life story of abuse was no longer available to them from the source. So they had to come up with a new strategy, which was getting Lisa to admit that she had indeed killed Bobby Joe, but prove that she was not guilty by reason of insanity. So if her lawyers could get the jury to believe, as they did, that Lisa suffered from depression, borderline personality disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, and also phantom pregnancy, like that's a condition where a woman believes she's pregnant even though she's not. Remember we talked about it in the Bloody Mary story? Do you remember? Phantom pregnancies where like a woman thinks she's pregnant and then your body reacts and you experience symptoms of pregnancy such as like swelling of the belly, your menstruation stops. I hate that word. And then also you may feel like movement in your stomach. Isn't that wild? So unfortunately, though, like this theory, it didn't stand in court, and the prosecution managed to have forensic psychiatrist Park Dates, who worked with prosecutors on the cases of Jeffrey Dahmer and the Unabomber. We did both of those, remember? Oh my god, how many members am I gonna say? Anyways, they testified that the diagnosis offered by the defense's main expert witness was voodoo science and excluded from the case entirely on the grounds that it had no scientific basis. The defense also went on to further prove that Lisa knew her actions were wrong and none of them were impulsive. So, with no final tactics available, Lisa was unable to be saved from a murder conviction. On October 22nd, 2007, Lisa, she was convicted of murder and she received a death sentence on October 26th. Lisa's husband Kevin and Bobby Joe's mother Beck, as well as some other family members, were all at the hearing, but no one spoke to reporters. So, of course, they're trying to appeal the case. They don't want her to die to get a death penalty. And then during the appeals process, experts examined
supposed
Lisa
to make
and
an egg
found
sandwich?
that, unbeknownst to her trial jury, her upbringing had left her suffering from florid psychosis, bipolar disorder, and post-traumatic stress disorder. She was often disassociated from reality, and as a result from her many beatings, had suffered permanent brain damage because of all of this. Before her trial, neither the prosecution nor her own defense team had investigated the relationship between Lisa's many symptoms and her traumatic history. During the trial, the jury found that Lisa was unemotional.
Oh, wait, I did
She
do it.
showed like no
Whoop,
remorse
never
for her
mind.
actions. She showed really no emotion about what had taken place. And Lisa's appeals team felt that the only reason for this behavior was because Lisa was taking a powerful antipsychotic medication, that Lisa deserved an appeal because she was just as much a victim as she was the perpetrator. Now, that's a hot debate. You know, that's what makes this kind of like an interesting story, because a lot of people do believe that she was just as much as of a victim as Bobby Joe. So Frederick responded to the appeal with an affidavit, I can't say this word, affidavit, of over 100 pages defending his legal proceedings, insisting that none of the issues raised by her appeal lawyers have merit. He felt that the experience trying over a dozen capital cases, many involving complex mental health issues, proved he handled the case the best way possible, and that this former client's appeal lawyers were nothing more than spoiled, selfish prima donnas. That's what he said. Anyways, to make a long story short here, because they were just trying to like get an appeal and get Lisa to be able to present in court that she was a victim just as much as Bobby Joe was. For some odd reason, she didn't want the death penalty. I don't know why people try to avoid the death penalty. I would gladly take it over sitting in jail. Is that just me? Wouldn't you? Sitting in jail for the rest of your life sounds way worse. Anyways, I'm sorry. Anyways, so they tried to appeal any way that they could, and they tried every which way possible, but they exhausted the appeals process. Lisa was scheduled for an execution by lethal injection December 8th, 2020, but it was delayed because her attorney contracted COVID-19. I know. Just recently, oh my god. So, just recently, like a couple months ago, January 1st, 2021, the judge granted a stay of her execution on the ground that her mental competence must first be tested, as executing individuals with intellectual disabilities violates the 8th Amendment of the Constitution regarding cruel and unusual punishments. Therefore, meaning Lisa doesn't qualify for the death sentence. The stay was then overturned by the Supreme Court. They voted 6-3, and the execution order was ordered to be carried out immediately. Not long after midnight, January 13th, 2021, Lisa Montgomery was executed at the prison in Indiana. Yeah, bye. When asked if she had any final words, she simply responded with no. She is the first female federal inmate in 67 years to be executed by the United States federal government.
Let's
Reports
try it out.
confirmed that members of Bobby Joe's family were present for the execution, but Zeb, Bobby Joe's husband, he has not spoken publicly about that day or really about anything. And that, my friends, is the awful story about Bobby Joe, her awful, sad murder, how sick Lisa Montgomery is, and what the fuck? So, okay, this got me a little confused, because I think naturally, like, you want to see Lisa as the victim, but she did something really awful. I mean, like, that takes a special kind of sick to kill somebody and then cut their stomach open. That takes a different kind of fucking brain, okay? Right? And it's like, yes, Lisa went through some awful shit, but lots of people go through awful shit and don't cut stomachs open. You know? Sorry, Lisa.
Third.
Bye. You know, it's hard to have compassion for her when she did something really, 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 really awful. I don't know how I feel. How do you feel? I would love to hear your guys' thoughts down below. Do you think Lisa should have been executed? Is she a victim? Shit. I don't know. Look, in this country, we care more about getting rid of people than we do helping people when they go through traumatic shit. So it makes sense in this country, but if we were a country that put mental illness and stuff first, I think she could have been helped. But let's be honest here, that's not how this country works. We like to just lock them up, get them out of here, you know? So it's like, realistically, it would have been nice if she could receive some kind of help, but was it gonna happen? Fucking no, because that's not how this place works, you know? That's my own opinion. And I'm sorry, but Lisa, you gotta go, because that was real fucked up. Where is Bobby Joe's family now? I don't know. I didn't look it up. I didn't want to, because, you know, they've been through a lot. Just leave them alone. Anyways, I want to hear your guys' thoughts down below. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Let me know down below in the comment section who you want me to talk about next week. But other than that, I hope you have a wonderful day. You make good choices. Please be safe out there. And I'll be seeing you guys later. Bye. Shut up. Hi Hi friends, how are you today? I hope you're having a wonderful day so far. My name is Bailey Sarian and today is Monday, which means it's Murder, Mystery, and Makeup Monday! If you are new here, hi, welcome. My name is Bailey Sarian and on Mondays I sit down and I talk about true crime story that's been heavy on my noggin,
hang on, let me go get her a
and I do
treat,
my
'cause
makeup
jeez.
at the same time. If you're interested in true crime and you like makeup, I would highly suggest you subscribe because I'm here for you on Mondays. Before we jump into today's story, we do have a sponsor, so let's skadoodle right into that. Hi, just popping in here really quick to mention today's sponsor, which is Casetify. Casetify is a tech accessory brand specializing in unique and protective phone cases, AirPod cases, watch bands, and many other tech accessories. Casetify cases are
It's now
slim and
summer. I have to
protective. Their
plant
impact
new crops.
cases are engineered with a 2-layer construction of Chi-Tech and drop test approved for drops up to 6.6 feet.
Anybody got a fucking
That's right,
garlic
baby.
yet? 'Cause
Much
nah,
more
not yet.
protective than those cheaper alternatives that you'd find, elsewhere. Okay, they come in so many different designs. Okay, there's so many different designs, colors. Ooh, so much to choose from. You can pick your favorite color or print and match your phone to your own style, like I did. Oh my god, look, moo. But also you can add your name or a monogram for a truly custom case. Look, Casetify is like pulling the Hannah Montana over here because they let you have the best of both worlds. Protection with personality. Casetify, they have antimicrobial coating, which helps keep your case germ-free because you got some sticky fingers. We don't know what you're touching. But it kills 99% of bacteria because some of you are nasty out there, you know what I'm saying? I personally have a Casetify addiction. Hey, at least I can admit it, okay? Because I just keep getting more and more. There's just so many to choose from. They're like Pokemon. I just go gotta catch them all. I just got these ones. Well, I just got the cow because I just felt like someone really spoke to my soul. Angel. Because it also spoke to who I am as a person. Angel. And then, this is my old one. I was using this for a hot minute. I did the snake and I said, it says Bailey on it. But then I added the I turned it off though. But let me tell you, you're spending so much money on these cell phones, right? They cost a damn arm and a leg. Protect them. Keep them safe. Slippery fingers out there. Dropping your phones all over the place. And you can look cute while you're doing it. Moo. You can go to casetify.com/BaileySarian today and get 15% off your new favorite phone case. A big thank you to Casetify for partnering with me on today's video. But most of all, a big thank you to you guys because without you, I wouldn't be here. And let's get back to today's story. Go. And we're back. This week, I fell down a huge rabbit hole with this story. My brain has turned to mush. I never want to talk about Charles Manson ever again. Ever again. There are so many layers to this damn story. There is so much to this story. I felt like I was losing my mind at some points, but I'm here. So, I don't know how long this is going to be. I'm going to try and keep it short because editing is a bitch. But I did, simplify it as much as I could. There's a lot of names that are going to be thrown your way, so get ready. Get ready to catch them. You get it. I had to simplify it a little bit, as best as I could without losing the overall story. Charles Manson, here we go. Charles Maddox was born November 12, 1934. He's a Scorpio. In Cincinnati, Ohio, to his mother, Kathleen Maddox, who was just 15 at the time of his birth. Charles wouldn't have a relationship with his biological father. His mother, Kathleen, she ended up marrying a man by the name of William Manson about 4 months before she gave birth to Charles. So Charles took the name Manson. Then when the couple separated in 1937, Charles kept the last name. Tarnished that name, that's for sure. As a way to make money, Kathleen worked as a sex worker and participated in petty crimes. It was said that Charles' mother wanted nothing to do with him. That at one point when he was a baby, his mom tried to sell him as a baby to a waitress in return for a pitcher of beer. To some people, that's considered a fair trade. In 1939, Kathleen was sent to prison for 5 years for armed robbery. And during this time, Charles was sent to live with his aunt and uncle in West Virginia. If I call him Charlie and Charles, just know it's the same person. Whatever. Charlie seemed to bounce around a lot. He didn't really have a stable home, but he would visit his off-the-grid uncle who lived in the Kentucky mountains from time to time. This uncle seemed to have like a lasting impression on Charles. Okay, this uncle, he was an outcast and would tell Charles not to go to those schools because they brainwash kids and stuff. You know, that uncle. But Charlie said that he really liked him. He was different. He was off the grid, man. When Charlie was 9, he tried to set his school on fire, and that's when they sent him to reform school. Between 1942 and 1947, Charles' mom, she was out of prison, and he would stay with her, which he said was like one of the happiest times from his childhood. Then she couldn't and she wouldn't take care of him anymore, and then she was arrested again. She wasn't able to put him in a foster home, so the court stepped in and placed him in a school for boys in Indiana. The school was very strict and often abused the boys, and after about 10 months, he ran away to find his mom. But she really wanted nothing to do with him, and when Charles found her, she was like, shit, you found me, damn it. So, as you can probably gather, pretty loveless childhood. Okay, great. He spent a lot of his childhood in different schools for boys. He went to the famous Boys Town, which we could do like a whole story on this place alone. Okay, but not today. But he went there, and Charles would run away. He would commit a robbery. Then he would be sent back. He would go to a different school for boys and repeat. Like it was just this cycle. Then he got sent to another terrible place. It was the Indiana Boys School, where Charles said that he would be beat and raped by people in charge. He was heavily abused throughout these schools he attended. He tried to run away here, but same thing. He would run away, commit a crime,
I've got
like
the
armed
thread.
robbery, theft. He robbed a gas station. He was caught a couple of times trying to rape or molest boys. Then he would get arrested and get sent back to a different school. It was just like a hot mess. When Charles reached 20 years old in 1955, he married a 17-year-old waitress named Rose. Not long after, she was pregnant. The two of them stole a car and drove to Los Angeles. When he was there, he was caught and he was sentenced to 3 years in prison. While Charlie sat in prison, Rose, she had her baby. She moved in with her family in Los Angeles. Then she met another man and moved on, and they separated. Charles Manson had a baby, which is super sad because later on in life, I think he committed suicide. So when Charlie got out of prison, he just found odd jobs, like pimping 16-year-olds, stealing cars, forging checks, stealing where he could. He ended up getting another 10-year sentence for violating his probation. This time, though, he would only serve 7.5 years. So this time, though, when he was in prison, he learned how to play guitar, and that's when he started to become really into playing music. Music is my passion. Prison was rough, but it was like a home to Charlie, and he was raised in there, and it's really where he formed his outlook on life.
Oh, I hope
based
it's
off of
garlic.
what he said. He refused to
Fucking
be programmed
trying
by
everything
the
to get
world
garlic.
or go along with the expectations of what was considered being a functioning normal adult. Instead, he would just sit in
fishy
his
cheese.
jail cell, play his guitar, and write music. That's not me trying to make him sound all peaches and cream. Nay. Rumor has it, prison is like super rough, and you don't play around there, okay? There are rules to be followed. So growing up in prison and being in constant fight or flight mode, I think just really like made him freaking psycho, I'm sure. I mean, how do you come out normal in this situation? In 1967, Charles was released from prison, and he actually asked if he could stay. He didn't want to go. I mean, what the hell was he going to do? But this time when he left prison, it was actually a lot different for him, okay? He was in San Francisco in the mid-1960s. Babe, things had changed. Things had changed. It was the time of the flower child. Hippies were thriving in the Haight-Ashbury district of San Francisco. Tons of young adults were
Ooh.
coming from all over the place, just coming out to the area to advocate for peace and love, grow their hair out long, join a commune, and just like go on a spiritual journey, man. But then LSD was introduced to the scene, and now people were not only going on their spiritual journeys, but they were just straight up tripping balls. That's when it started to turn more aggressive because drugs and money, and there was just like lots of journeys happening. Anywho, so Charles enters the scene, and he actually liked this because these people were all about peace and love. We don't need the system. Sleep on the streets, play music, do drugs. He had long hair and a guitar. It was just like Charles' cup of tea. He fit right in. He would play music on the streets. People would gather around. Anyone who met him said that he had this charisma about him. He just knew how to talk to people and make them feel special, important, and like heard. So Charles, he really just started making friends. One of his first followers was Lynette Fromm, and she met Charlie early on and said that he was just easy to talk to, and his mind just really intrigued her. Then soon after that, he met Pat Krenwinkel at a mutual friend's house. Charlie was there playing guitar. People came over to hang out, and Pat and Charlie ended up like really hitting it off and involving in some sexual relations.
I have her looking like
she
a
said
hoe.
that she just felt very loved by him. The way he gave
I like
her
the hand
attention
ten
was
better,
fulfilling.
but the
She was
Hakama is what
young.
I need.
She ran away from home. She was desperate for love and
Hakama.
attention, and Charlie just gave that to her. And he seemed to do that
I
with
like
a
this one.
lot of different women. So Charlie also had a man named Tex Watson who joined the growing family, a way to get a man to stay with the group and
Ooh,
join
that
in on
one's
the fun.
cute.
Charlie would offer women to the
I like that
men
one's
in
cute.
hopes to gain their trust and get them to stay. Charlie would like round up
Oh,
more
that one's
women,
cute too.
sell, trade them for sex. He was really good at manipulating people, and he mentioned
I like
that
that
it's
one.
just something he learned or like picked up in prison. The prettiest
like that one, too.
girls he called the Front Street Girls, and these were the
That one's
ones
cute.
that he thought were the most attractive out of the bunch and would lure others to join their group. Like, hey, you should come meet my friend Charlie. He's super cool and like you would really love it, and then we can like do stuff. Over time, Charles was attracting more and more people into his group, or what he called his family. He gained their trust, gave them drugs, had sex, played music. It was just like somewhere all the lost kids wanted to be. Most of the followers left home. They had like nothing to their name, in search of a new life, anti-system, peace and love. So finding a family of people with similar interests really kept people there. I think that's how a cult starts. In the summer of 1967,
Oh, I need the
Charles
square
and
glasses.
his family, they left San Francisco.
Silver and glass, huh?
They left San Francisco in a bus, and they drove up and down the coast, just going from place to place, which kept everybody entertained. You know, they weren't getting bored because it was like new location. Cool. Haven't seen this rock before. Eventually,
this one?
they made it to Los Angeles,
Cement
where
and
they
glass?
spent most of their time. Plus, Charlie really wanted to like make
This
a
one
name
looks
for
more like
himself playing
mine.
music.
Maybe
In
cement
March
and
of
glass.
1968, two of the family members, two of the girls,
Or this
they
one.
were walking
Still cement
along
and glass.
Sunset
Yeah,
Boulevard
cement and glass.
in Los Angeles. I don't know what was going on, like what they were doing. Maybe they were trying to find new family members, but either way, they're just walking and they're hitchhiking because they're trying to find a ride to where they were all staying at. And Dennis Wilson ends up picking them up. He's from the Beach Boys, who were a very popular group, still pretty popular, right? You hear the Beach Boys everywhere sometimes, especially like when you're shopping. They always have the Beach Boys playing. But they were very popular. So yet, like, yeah, small world. But he picks these two women up who belong to the Manson family. To make a long story short, the women tell him about the man that they're staying with, a spiritual guru of some sorts, you know? Spiritual guru, his name's Charlie. You should meet him. And then Charles actually ends up going over to Dennis Wilson's home. They really seem to hit it off. I mean, they became like BFFs. Okay, so then they end up spending like more and more time together. And then soon the whole Manson family ended up moving in with Dennis Wilson in like his nice ass place. They are living with him, doing drugs, playing music, writing music, recording music together. It seemed like Charles Manson was on his way to becoming a Beach Boy. Dennis Wilson really wanted him to be a part of the group, but some of the other Beach Boys, they just didn't like him. They refused to work with him. Some members of the Beach Boys were telling Dennis, like, hey, you need to get rid of this guy. Like, he's not good. We're just getting all sorts of bad vibes. You need to drop him. All he wants to do is party, do drugs. Like, he's just not good for you. The Manson family ends up getting kicked out of Dennis's house, and they end up cutting ties with one another. It's more complicated than that, but for the most part, that is what happened. The Beach Boys' song Bluebirds Over the Mountain was originally a song written by Charles Manson that the Beach Boys recorded and didn't credit him on. But Charles says that was his song, okay? And they didn't credit him on it. So Charles is pissed, obviously. While they were living together, Charlie met a well-known music producer named Terry Melcher. Charles knew that this producer had altered his music and honestly just hated him. He hated Charlie because he just didn't like him. They had issues. And then he ended up stealing his music and altering it and using it and not crediting him. So Charlie is obviously very pissed off and held a very nasty grudge against this producer, and there really wasn't anything he could do about it. Terry is important, so remember Terry. August of 1968, Susan Atkins, who was like a longtime family member at this point, found the family a new home. It was an old Western movie set which had been turned into a riding stable. It was owned at the time by an 80-year-old half-blind man named George Spahn. So they find this place, they think it's perfect. Great, the whole gang moved in. Great location for a cult, honestly. So soon after, a woman by the name of Leslie Van Houten, she joined the family, and they all stayed in that old torn-down movie set, Spahn Ranch. It was said to be all like fun and innocent. They spent time play acting movie roles, kind of like summer camp with your friends. So it was said when they were there, it was like time didn't exist. There was no time. They were all just living in the moment, the now.
I forgot what I was
They would
supposed to
pretend
bring.
every day was Halloween.
Oh,
and
whoa.
they would dress up in costumes, play different roles, and it was just a way for them to get out of themselves, let their ego go and their world views. And by removing their egos, it would allow Charlie in and change their views on the world. Charlie would tell family members that society was corrupt and that they needed to forget everything they've ever learned. I can talk. Charlie would tell them that like he was the noble one, the one with all the answers, and only he knew the truth. So the family, they would drop acid all the time, and they would do different exercises together while tripping balls, you know? He would make everyone sit around like,
autumn.
in a circle, and he would be in the middle, and he would have everybody focus on him. He was the focal point. He would also tell them to get rid of their past, forget their mothers and fathers, and that they needed to die in order to be rebuilt. Some of the members said that it's funny. We can laugh,
Summer.
but it's not funny. It is funny because some of the
Spring,
members said that like he even
summer,
reenacted the crucifixion while they were on
summer,
LSD, and because they were
autumn.
tripping, it was like, oh my God, Jesus is melting. That's Jesus, bro. So this group, they're
Cabbage and
cut off from
spinach.
society in the middle of nowhere, doing drugs every day
Cabbage and
with the same
spinach.
people. Brainwashing seemed to happen. Charles, his philosophy was the notion of oneness and the power of love. But over time, he got more and more paranoid. His messaging would become darker. There was no right or wrong in life. Death and life were the same thing, not to fear it. Death was actually a welcoming to a better life. This is what he's telling them. It was said it got to a point where like Charlie stopped letting anybody leave the compound without his permission. They weren't allowed to listen to any music except for the Beatles, the Moody Blues, or Charles's own music. Like I mentioned in last Monday's upload, in 1966 there was like a bunch of riots going on protesting against the war in Vietnam. So Charlie was following this but wouldn't allow his members to know about what was going on. But he seemed to be becoming paranoid that there was going to be a race war happening soon. Now this is where things get tricky and people have different versions for what happened next. There's the helter-skelter version, which I'll explain, and then there's like the drug deal gone wrong version that I personally think is what really happened. I don't think the helter-skelter doomsday cult thing was a thing. I'll explain. I know, controversial. Oh my God. So July 1969, one of the followers was Tex. His name was Tex, remember? Okay, cool. So he was also a drug dealer while living on the ranch. It was said that Tex went to go do a deal with another dealer named Bernard Crow in Los Angeles. Tex was buying a lot of drugs from this guy, like $1,200 worth. Tex didn't have all of the money, but he told Bernard, hey, I'll take the drugs, get the rest of your money, and then come back and pay you. Because you know that always works. Bernard was like, how do I know you're gonna come back? And Tex was like, here's my girlfriend. I'll have her stay with you. She'll stay here with you as collateral. He agrees, and then Tex takes off. Tex never comes back. Yeah, I know, what a douche. So his girlfriend is probably like, yeah, don't worry, he's coming back. He's a man of his word. He would never just leave me here. And then like 12 hours go by and she's like, yeah, maybe he got sidetracked or something. He loves me. He's coming back. He's not coming back, is he? No. Okay. So some time passes. Bernard still has the girlfriend hostage, mind you. And then he calls up Tex. Now, Tex, his real name was also Charles, but everyone called him Tex. So Bernard calls on the number to reach Tex at the compound or whatever. Bernard asks for Charles because he means Tex, but it was actually Charles Manson that was on the other end. So Bernard is like, I want my money. Where's my money? Bernard then said that if he didn't get his money, he was going to burn down the ranch and rape all his women. So Charles Manson then decides to take matters into his own hand. He goes down to meet with Bernard, walks in, they fight. Charles shoots him. Charles grabs the girl, and then he leaves him behind. Bernard actually survives, but Charlie doesn't know that. He thinks he's dead. Charlie starts to get really paranoid because he believed that Bernard belonged to the group Black Panthers and that they were going to come after him and his family for what he did. I mean, this guy, Bernard, was like a bigwig drug dealer. Once someone got word, it was like it was going to be over for him. So Charlie starts warning the family members that the Black Panthers are going to kill them and that they need to learn how to fend for themselves. But he's just getting really paranoid and hopes that nobody finds out what he did. He decides that he needs to get the family members to commit crimes and then make them complicit in the crimes that he had committed. I feel like criminals always overcomplicate things. That's just a personal opinion though, but I feel like it's very true. Due to his growing paranoia that the Black Panther group was coming after him, Charles enlisted a motorcycle gang called the Straight Satans for protection over the compound. In exchange for protection, Charlie promised him or them all the girls they wanted. Here's where I'm gonna throw some names at you, but it's fine, just follow it. So one day the biker guys wanted drugs. They want to do some drugs. And one of the family members, his name was Bobby, he said that there was a guy named Gary Hinman who would be able to supply them with some goods. So the biker guys give Bobby some money and he goes and he gets drugs from Gary. So the biker guys, they do the drugs. Afterwards, they're pissed. They're pissed because the guys from the Straight Satans said the drugs were bad and they wanted their money back for being ripped off. These guys were growing more and more angry, threatening to kill people if they didn't get their money back. So Charlie told Bobby and two other family members, Mary Brunner and Susan Atkins, to go with Bobby and get the money back from Gary Heineman because he didn't want any problems with the biker guys. Like, you didn't want to be on their bad side. Charlie already believed that the Black Panthers were after him. He didn't want the Straight Satans after him either. So the three of them head out, and when they get to Gary's house, they have like a gun and stuff. They're threatening him. They're like, we want our money back. The drugs were fake, whatever. Gary refused to give them the money back, saying that the drugs were good, and he didn't even have the money because he already spent it. And then things seemed to escalate. Things escalated, and then Bobby, Mary, and Susan stayed at Gary's house for like 2 days. They had him tied up. They're trying to reason with him to give up the money or give them something valuable that he could give to the Straight Satans in lieu of the money. At some point, there was like a bit of a struggle that happened, and one of the girls ends up calling Charlie Manson to let him know that Gary wasn't cooperating. And then Charles was like, okay, I'll be right there. Bobby regained control, and then soon after, Gary agreed to sign over his
That's
cars,
right, I wanted
which
glasses.
were worth about $1,000. He could use the cars and the little money, so they're making this agreement. Cool. Then, this sounds like a cheesy movie, but this, yes. Then, Charlie comes busting through the door. He has a Confederate knife, busts through the door, cuts Gary across the face, starts threatening him. Bobby was like, okay, that was really unnecessary, you know? But what do we do now? We can't just let him go. He'll rat us out. Bobby ends up killing Gary because that was really his only option. So he takes the knife and he just kills Gary. So before leaving Gary's house, Bobby wrote on the walls in Gary's blood. He drew a Black Panther paw print along with the words political piggy. And he did this because it was recommended to him by Charles Manson because he wanted to throw off investigators and make them believe that the murder was related to the Black Panthers, tying back to the Bernard Crow shooting. Like maybe they would tie those two together. Not long after, though, Bobby was pulled over and arrested in one of Gary's cars, and he was being charged with the and he was being charged for the murder of Gary Heineman because he did it. Yeah, you know, so yeah, it makes sense. Bobby was a family member, though, okay? The group stood up for their family members. So when he was arrested, Charlie started getting really paranoid that things were going to lead back to him. He knew that they had to get Bobby out.
Do
so
I
the
seriously
group
not have any
decided
fucking
to
watermelons?
kill again. They would stage it to look like a copycat murder,
Okay.
leading investigators to believe whoever did it also probably committed the Gary Heineman murder, which meant Bobby wasn't involved because he was in jail. So it would make them think that they had the wrong guy, and then Bobby would be set free. Flawless plan. Totally makes sense. Nobody will know. Again, criminals always overcomplicate things, but this is what they're thinking. So back at Spawn Ranch, Charlie and Tex, they were like trying to come up with a plan.
Hello.
Who do we hate that we can kill and create like this copycat scene? Terry Melcher. Remember the music producer? Yeah. So Charlie had been to
These
Terry's home at one
ones?
point when they were living with the Beach Boy.
Or
So he knew where
these
Terry
ones?
lived. August 9th, 1969. In a big
These
old
ones?
house on Celio Drive in Los Angeles is where actress Sharon Tate, who was 8 months pregnant, and her movie director husband, Roman Polanski, were renting Terry Melcher's home. Talk about wrong place, wrong damn time. Now on this night, Roman was in the UK and Sharon was at home with her friends having like a little get together, just hanging out. Along with Sharon was her ex-boyfriend or fiance and friend, hairstylist Jay Sebring, iconic hairstylist.
a tough
Also,
call.
coffee
Okay.
heiress Abigail Folger was there. Yeah, Folger's in your cup, queen. Yeah. She's there. Abigail's boyfriend was also there, Wojciech Frykowski. He was there too.
Hello.
There was also a man named Stephen Parent who was visiting the home, taking care of the property. So the family members, Tex, Pat, Linda, and Susan, get into the car and they drive out to the home. Charles tells them to do everything that Tex says, but doesn't tell them like what it is they're doing. Except for Tex, he's the only one that knows. When they arrive late at night, Tex went onto the property first. That's when he came across Stephen Parent, who was like literally in his car. Like it looked like he was just put the keys in or something because he was about to leave and go home. Poor Stephen, he was shot by Tex 4 times. So then after that, Tex goes back to the car and told the girls, like, come on, come with me, we're going inside now. Tex was able to get into the house through an unlocked door and let the others in. And then in the living room, Tex was trying to deal with Jay Sebring, who he came across first, and he had him on the floor. He was trying to tie him up. Tex asked Susan to go and check the back rooms and like bring everyone into the living room. So Tex and Jay are in the living room and they're starting to fight because Jay's trying to run away, escape, but sadly Tex shot him and killed him. It was said that Tex was the one who killed most that night, but like they all participated in their own ways. It was just a really gruesome scene. There was blood everywhere. Everyone was brutally murdered. It was just horrifying. Then in Sharon Tate's blood, there was the word pig written on the front door. They were trying to tie it back to the previous murder. In total, the victims had been stabbed 102 times, and they had gunshot wounds, so it was like a little much. Like they're dead. I get it. Now, many believe that this was some kind of satanic ritual type of killing, and when the media got a hold of it, it was a massive story. Hollywood was terrified. Celebrities were thinking that, like, someone was gonna come to them and kill them next. It's believed Charlie had the family members involved in the Tate murders to prevent them from talking to police about the Bernard and Gary murder, because now their hands were dirty too. So they were hoping that back at the crime scene, the police would be making the connection between the 2 murders. Unfortunately, the police never made that connection. They didn't connect the 2. So, great plan, worked great. So the next night, another murder was in the works. This time, it would be at the home of a grocery company executive named Leno and his wife Rosemary LaBianca. Now, this would be in like a very different section of Los Angeles. This night, though, Leslie Van Houten, she went along to like prove her loyalty to Charlie and the family. She said that before going, she knew people were gonna die, but she like wanted to prove herself. Charlie, Leslie, Pat, Tex, Linda, and Susan all crammed into a car, and they drove around for a while before they stopped at the house that they were going to hit next. Charles went in first and tied up the LaBiancas, then he left. So the rest of the gang, they came in, they're struggling with the LaBiancas. The two girls were going to kill the LaBiancas, but I think they chickened out, and they asked Tex to come in, kill them. So he killed the husband and wife, and then the girls took the knives and stabbed them and like cut them up and carved in their body because Tex said that they needed to do something. It was a pretty brutal and awful scene. Anything bad you can imagine, that was it, okay? That was the scene. It was not nice. The LaBiancas had been stabbed a total of 67 times. Once again, they used their blood and they wrote death to pigs, rise, and Helter Skelter on the walls and the fridge. Helter Skelter, which they spelled wrong, first of all, great, was referencing the Beatles song Helter Skelter from the White Album, the only thing that they were allowed to listen to on Spawn Ranch. Charles believed the music incited a race war and murder. Because the Beatles were huge, they thought that investigators would make this connection because they are trying to make it look like a copycat murder. So they wrote in the blood again. They'll connect it with the Sharon Tate ones. Sharon Tate connects to the Gary ones. Gary one leads back to the drug dealer. So it was said that the reason they killed again was because they didn't realize that the Tate murders were going to become so big, because it wasn't supposed to. It was just supposed to be Terry Melcher there, but it was all over the news and everybody was talking about it, and that wasn't the plan. So they needed to hit again. The reason that Charlie picked the LaBiancas home, because it may seem super random, but it wasn't random, not at all. Nay. Like mentioned earlier, Charlie, he held a grudge and he never forgot when he did him wrong. The LaBiancas, they lived next door to a guy named Harold True. We don't need to know him, but he was there. Harold was a friend to Charlie and the family. They actually stayed at Harold's house for a bit of time. The family, again, they like moved in to Harold's house and were living there for some time. But I guess they were causing a bit of a ruckus and the neighbors called the cops, which led to Charlie and the family having to move out. Who were the neighbors? The LaBiancas, of course. That's why he decided to kill them that night, because he remembered that. And because they needed another copycat murder. Also, Charlie remembered that the LaBiancas liked to gamble and had lots of money. Money that he needed to pay back the straight Satans. That's his plan. So over the years, Charlie had said that like he was never there at the LaBiancas in interviews and whatnot, but everyone said he was the one who drove to the LaBianca house and that he went in for a bit, for a period of time. Well, inside, after tying the LaBiancas up, Charlie went and grabbed Rosemary LaBianca's wallet, then waited for the gang back in the car. Once the murders were complete, Charlie then took them to a house in Venice Beach, which was right next to the Straight Satan's clubhouse. Mind you, it was like 4 a.m. and there's many speculation as to why they went there. Some say it was to commit another murder, but many believe it was actually because Charlie went there to give the Straight Satans the money owed and regain their
Hang on, I
protection
need to
over
make some
Spawn
soup.
Ranch, which makes sense because he just got the money from the LaBiancas. Back at Spawn Ranch, there was a ranch hand named Donald Shea, who was a Hollywood stuntman actor, but also helped out around the ranch. Now, he didn't like the family. He thought they were taking advantage of the old man who owned it. And on August 16th, 1969, 26 members of the family were arrested on suspicion of auto theft. It didn't last long though. Due to like some paperwork errors, they were all released. But because of this, Charlie thought that the ranch hand, Donald, tipped them off to police. And when they got back to the ranch, Donald Shea was never seen again. Just vanished. Poof. Gone. So now that they're on police's radar, they wanted somewhere else to live. And the group ends up moving to Barker Ranch in Death Valley, which was like an old mining property that was pretty cut off from the world. So they were there for a bit. Then on October 12th, 1969, officers raided the Barker Ranch on suspicion of auto theft again. 24 members were arrested this time. Now, they didn't even know that these people were involved with the murders going on. They were just there, auto theft. You're arrested. Auto theft. Let's go. Now, this time, though, while in jail, one of the family members, Susan Atkins, she blabbed. She told her cellmates that she and the family were involved with the murder of Sharon Tate. I don't know why I'm whispering, but I am. She was kind of bragging about it, like, oh, you're looking at her. I'm the one who was involved. Based off interviews with the cellmate. Yes, I like went down a rabbit hole. Anyways, the cellmate tells investigators this information because, hello, I want a lesser sentence. I'm gonna rat on you, which they did. And this, my friends, is where it all just falls apart. Goodbye. December 1969, 4 months after the crimes. Oh, a lot of things happened in between here, but it's like nothing that really makes a difference. It's just bullshit. Charles Manson and 5 members were being charged with the Tate and LaBianca murders. On June 15th, 1970, the trial starts. Charlie, Mr. Manson, he asked for permission to serve as his own attorney, but he was denied. They should have let him, no, they shouldn't have. He was denied. Susan Atkins gave a testimony and described in great detail what happened the night of the Tate murders. She had like little to no emotion and showed not a lot of remorse. It was very awkward. They didn't want to use her as a witness because they thought it wouldn't help the helter-skelter story that prosecutors were going to focus on, which we will get into. So they ended up not using her. They're like, you're a bad look. Get out of here. Now, the main problem was that Charles Manson was not at the murder scene during the Tate murders and did not participate in the LaBianca murders. So they had to get him with circumstantial evidence and by the law of conspiracy. I know, confusing. They didn't have any proof that he did a damn thing. So prosecutors had to get creative and come up with a storyline that would convict Charles Manson. Now, Hollywood was going crazy over this trial, and day after day, Charlie would come into court. All of this was like being filmed for TV news, and he would just spew some wild shit. He was playing to the courtroom. He knew it was a circus and he was feeding into it. Charlie would have like constant stare-offs with the camera because he knew that people would be like, oh my God, what a freaking weirdo. And then he would also do it to the jury members. He would just stare at the jury and it just made them feel extremely uncomfortable. He was just aggressive, intimidating, and very strange. But the media was loving it. They're like, oh, this is just bizarre. We're in. So every day, Charles Manson and the 3 girls, they would meet and they would discuss like what they were going to do in court that day. For example, one day he wanted them all to stand up and hold hands and some symbols. Another day he wanted them to get up and scream, or he wanted them to sing his songs when they were walking into court. It is creepy, it is weird, and I think he just loved that. It was just a weird performance that nobody asked for. So the rest of the Manson family members were banned from court proceedings for disrupting the court, so they moved out to the hallways, and they also kept a vigil outside to show their support. Charles carved an X into his forehead at one point to symbolize his removal from society, and then the 3 girls did the same as well. Eventually down the line, he turned that X into a swastika, so that's great. Seems like a real hoot of a guy. Wow. So again, TV news went wild. Everyone went wild. Girls Gone Wild. It was just all wild. So here's where the helter-skelter story came into play and is what Charles Manson is really remembered by nowadays. They go hand in hand. The prosecutor, his name is Vincent Buglowski, whatever the hell. Now, Vincent was said to be a very great prosecutor. He was a known womanizer and he loved attention. He brought in another guy with him during the court proceedings who everyone thought was like his assistant or extra help, but really the guy was there to help Vincent write a book on the case, which he didn't mention to anyone until after the fact. So he brings in this guy is taking notes, gonna help him write a book. The helter-skelter story that was presented in court was that Charles Manson formed a cult filled with people who didn't want to be a part of society. Okay, facts. Charles wanted to be a rock star. He was obsessed with the Beatles, the Beach Boys. Through the Beach Boys is how he came to meet Terry Melcher, who stole his music and represented the establishment to Charlie. Charlie hated the establishment. He believed that the Beatles were predicting a race war through hidden messages in their songs, and he needed to prepare for this race war. Charles brainwashed his members in believing that there was a race war about to take place, ordered them to kill Gary Heineman, then ordered them to kill white people and frame black people by telling his
The
followers
answer is
to kill
oatmeal.
whoever lived at Terry's
Oatmeal.
house. Then Charles picked another house at random to attack, the La Biancas, and ordered everyone to be killed. The plot was to frame black people by having his followers leave messages and lines from the Beatles' White Album at the crime scene. This would then lead to a race war. Once the race war started, Charles and his family would hide in the desert until it was over. Then Charles would come out of hiding and become leader of the Black Army and rebuild the world. This, in summary, is the story that convicted Charles and gave
Hello,
Vincent
fuck your
fame
mother.
and fortune for selling his best-selling book, Helter Skelter. But we'll get into that too. This whole story was created, which I think there are bits and pieces correct in there. Like, Charles Manson, do not be mistaken, he was super freaking racist. Disturbed man. This reason as to why Charles Manson
Okay.
committed these crimes made for a
trying to
shocking story. But
not
most
have
of
my
all, it
titties
set
out,
Charles
but
up for
it
first-degree
is not
murder
easy.
and conspiracy under California law. Without the Helter Skelter storyline, there was no evidence that Charles wanted to make these murders happen or even participate in them. So the only way to get him convicted was by enhancing what happened. Charlie's plan to start a race war would make him responsible for all crimes committed. If the prosecution mentioned to the court the auto thefts, the drugs, the Bernard killing, then the Helter Skelter story, or whatever, it just wouldn't make sense. So they didn't even introduce any of that. They didn't even try to explain the whole Gary killing either. They really didn't. Because
The
how
Gary
did that fit
killing.
in with the Doomsday Cult
killed
mentality?
him
It
because his
didn't,
name
which
was
in
Gary.
theory could lead to reasonable doubt, possibly leaving jurors to think, maybe it had to do with a drug deal gone bad and not a cult. Maybe Charlie technically didn't do anything. And the prosecution did not want that. Their job was to get Charlie arrested. Plus, he is a danger to
Jam.
society, so they needed to, how do we make sure he gets locked up? So this whole story just blew up. Everybody was talking about Helter Skelter, how terrifying it all was. And then that became the story that really defined this whole everything. Charles Manson. And many believe that it really wasn't even true. The court hearings were a hot mess. Just gonna glaze over it. They were a hot mess. In the end, though, on March 29th, Charlie was charged with 7 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder for the deaths of Abigail, Wojciech, Steve, Sharon, Jay, Leno, and his wife, Rosemary. Guilty. Goodbye. Pat, Leslie, and Susan, they were also charged with murder, and the jury had called for the death penalty for all 4 defendants. The 3 girls were like, I'm not trying to say that there wasn't brainwashing happening in a cult mentality. Charlie's followers were right. These girls were loyal to him. They were he is everything to us. And they just did everything that he said. I just don't want that to get lost because I think that's very true. So they go to prison. Goodbye. Now, in 1972, the Supreme Court overturned the death penalty, so sentences were turned into life imprisonment. Charlie said at the end of the trial, all they really accomplished was sending him right back to where he started. And he really wasn't wrong there. Now, throughout the years, most of them have done interviews behind prison walls or whatever, where they have showed great remorse for what they've done. Except for that one girl, she was really weird. Who was it, Susan? I think it was Susan. I think as they got older, they just kind of came to their senses. Not so much Charlie, though. He never owned up to his part in the choices that they made. He would say over and over again till his dying day that he never told them what to do, that they made their choices on their own, and he had nothing to do with any of it. And I think that's why Charles Manson remains so infamous, because he never actually did anything. He got these other people to commit the crimes for him. He never got his hands dirty. But he did shoot the Bernard guy, so he did, technically. Sorry. Also, the whole Helter Skelter Doomsday cult story added to it. People just love cults. So it just took him to this iconic, infamous being, I guess. In 1974, Vincent Bugliosi, the prosecutor, he was now an author because he released his book Helter Skelter, which was based off of the Manson case, and it became the best-selling true crime book in history, selling over 7 million copies. So it brought him great success. Vincent was just riding the wave. A lot more things happened, but this video is already super long, so yeah. But everyone remained, and some still to this day remain in prison. Leslie Van Houten, she was sentenced to life in prison. She's 68 now, and she's been denied parole numerous times. Susan Atkins died in prison of brain cancer in 2009. Pat Krenwinkel is now 73 and still in prison. She's been denied parole numerous times as well. Tex Watson. Tex was like the most fucked up out of all of them. Okay, like he was
Wrong
really
one.
crazy. But he's 75 now, and he's still in prison. He's been denied parole numerous times as well, but he has become a born-again Christian and runs a Christian outreach site from prison. Linda Kasabian, I didn't really talk about her that much, but she was involved. I'm assuming that she came from money because she got a good attorney, okay? She was charged with nothing. She was there the night of the tape murders as the lookout, and then she also helped like clean and dispose of the weapons and whatnot. But she was charged with nothing because she was considered a star witness for the prosecutor's case against Charles Manson. She told them everything they wanted, and then afterwards she disappeared, changed her name. She was like, bye. Linda's done a couple of interviews since this whole thing, like later in life, and you can find them on YouTube, and her face is always like blacked out because she doesn't want anyone to know what she looks like. She kind of has meth face, and that's not me trying to be a dick. I don't really blame her for doing meth. Like, come on, just tell your truth. It's been 100 years. Bobby, remember Bobby in the very beginning? He killed Gary Heineman. He's 71 now, and he's still in prison. Yeah, he was convicted for murder, for killing Gary, so he's still in prison. Another family member, Steve Grogan, we didn't talk about him, but he was charged for the murder of Donald Shea, the Spawn ranch hand that went missing. Yeah, well, Steve was charged, but Steve was granted parole after serving 15 years for Donald's murder. He was allowed his freedom after telling authorities where Donald's body had been disposed. Lucky him, I guess, you know? Charles Manson remained behind bars until the age of 83, and then he died on November 19th, 2017 in prison. Oh my god, not long after his birthday. It's a full circle. But he had a heart attack or something. I don't know. He needed to go. Goodbye. He was just, exhausting. I watched so many interviews. He just talks in circles, but people find him absolutely fascinating. He says nothing, really. He just talks. I couldn't take it anymore. Charles Manson wasn't a god or Jesus-like figure. He was just an odd little man who was abandoned by his parents. He wanted attention and validation and was just filled with hate and did terrible things. Charles Manson has so many fangirls and guys, or did. I mean, people love the guy, and they believe that he was 100% innocent and didn't need to be in prison. But what I don't think these morons realize is that maybe he wanted to be in prison. Maybe it was his home. I mean, look what happens when he's out. Nothing good. Like, they were fighting so hard for him to be proven innocent. It's like, babe, no. We don't need that, no. There are so many people out there who idolize this guy. I just will never understand it. It's so bizarre. I've said this before and I will say it again. Get better idols. There are so many great people out there who have done amazing things. Why idolize someone who's just fucking weird with a swastika on their forehead, you fucking morons? I think it is fair to say that Charles Manson had a very difficult life, and now he's dead. The end. That is the story about Charles Manson. I told the other version, Drug Deal Gone Bad, but there's a lot of people and a lot of stories and versions about the Helter Skelter wherein it involves the Doomsday Cult. After this week of binge watching freaking everything that had to do with Charles, I just personally believe that the Doomsday Cult wasn't the thing. I think it was just a drug deal gone bad. Either way, they needed something to prosecute him on, and they had to create some kind of story to get him. Because if they didn't, then he would have been out. And they didn't want that. If they did do that, is that morally right? I don't know. I'm just someone on YouTube in a box. Anyways, it's still all sad though, because they were like really murdered. Like really murdered. If you made it all the way to the end, congratulations. I love you and appreciate you. You're the best. Wow, you're my best friend. Hi friends, how are you today? I hope you're having a wonderful day so far. My name is Bailey Sarian, and today is Monday, which means it's Murder, Mystery, and Makeup Monday. If you are new here, hi. My name is Bailey Sarian,
Still
and
no
on
fucking
Mondays I
garlic.
sit down and I talk about a true crime story that's been heavy on my noggin, and I do my makeup at the same time. If you're interested in true crime and you like makeup, I would highly suggest you hit that subscribe button because I'm here for you on Mondays. I'm out of breath. I was thinking I should like get some clothes because some of the common comments I see when I read my YouTube comments, it's like people a lot of the times think I already did this story, and my thought is maybe it's because I'm always wearing like black or gray. My hair's always the same. Maybe because I just always look the same. Do you think that's why? Because none of the stories I've uploaded on my YouTube has been a duplicate. I've never put up a story twice. But I see the comments all the time. I'm like, is it because I'm just like, I look the same? I guess so. Help me help you. Hopping in here because today's video is sponsored by HelloFresh. What is HelloFresh, you ask? Well, get mouth-watering seasonal recipes and fresh, pre-measured ingredients delivered right to your door with HelloFresh, which is America's #1 meal kit. HelloFresh makes cooking at home fun, easy,
Mortar,
and
silver,
affordable. HelloFresh
flexible
offers
cloth,
so many recipes to
and
choose from
wool.
each week to help you break out of your recipe rut. Because let's
Uh-huh.
admit it, right now,
Pink,
not
blue,
even right now. I
orange,
just think this
wool,
is an adult thing where it's just like,
cloth.
What do
You
you
can get
eat?
mortar, flexible cloths.
anyways,
Need
with HelloFresh, it cuts out
flexible
stressful meal planning and prepping, so
bread.
you can enjoy cooking and get dinner on the table in just
Okay.
like about 30 minutes. Or even they have a 20-minute like option. It's called the quick and easy option. Quick and easy. It's my middle name. With
I immediately
HelloFresh's
forgot.
pre-portioned ingredients, that means there's less prep for you.
Mortar,
okay?
sieve-
And then there's less
mortar,
wasted
silver,
food, 'cause you know when you
flexible
have to go buy a
cloth,
bunch
wool.
of ingredients. It's like I'm never gonna use this again. Like when am I gonna use cloves? How often do you? Don't get me started. I love HelloFresh because it's super easy. It breaks down the recipe step by step, visual. So if you're like a visual person, you see it and you're like, okay, I have to do that. Hey, some of us, pictures, we need them. With HelloFresh, it's just given me a lot more confidence being in the kitchen. Normally I start kitchen fires. I've mentioned this before, but like I haven't started a kitchen fire. Knock on wood. There's no wood here. But I haven't started one since we moved. Well, does that count? It was in the oven. Right now, you can go to HelloFresh.com and use my code SARIAN12 to
Silver.
get 12 free meals, including shipping.
Mortar.
Get your grub on, okay? A big thank you to HelloFresh for partnering with me on today's
Flexible
video.
cloth.
Most of all, big thank you to you guys, because without you, I wouldn't be making this video right now. Okay, now back to my no makeup face. Warning, the following presentation is intended for mature audiences. It contains graphic descriptions of crime scenes, adult dialogue, and strong language. Viewer discretion is advised. This week, we are going to talk about a serial killer. I'm using silver clips this time because last week you all thought I was a fairy, so let me use silver, okay? But this week, we're going to talk about a serial killer. It's been a while since we talked about a serial killer. Buckle in, kitty cats, because what the fuck? Today's story takes place in April 1971. The location, Washington, D.C. 13-year-old Carol Spinks. She was in 7th grade, and she was one of 8 siblings. And she also had an identical twin sister. Her and her twin sister, like no one could ever tell the two apart. And they would constantly play jokes on other people, like pretending to be the other sibling, you know? Twins. I don't know what it's like, because I don't have a twin, but it seems fun, I would think. I don't know. Assumptions. But Carol was said to be a little bit more quiet, and she was like the shy one out of the bunch. And at the age of 13, she was pretty petite. She was around 4 feet tall, and she was just a very small girl for 13. You get it. On Sunday, April 25th, Carol and her sisters are inside of their home, and they're just playing. Their mother comes in. She comes up to them. She's like, hey, I'm just gonna step out really quick. I'm gonna go visit one of our relatives, like down the street. You guys stay inside the house. Don't open the door for anyone, and do not leave the house. And they were like, okay, you know. And then the mom leaves, right? Okay. So the kids are just inside the house playing, and then someone's knocking at the front door. Knock, 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 knock. They peek outside and they see it's their older sister who no longer lives at the home, at the family home. She's nearby visiting some friends. And one of the sisters opens up the front door. The sister who was knocking was like, hey, can one of you guys just go to the store for me really quick? It'll just be like a quick little favor if you could just pick this thing up for me. And the kids are like, no, mom told us that we can't leave the house. We're not allowed to go anywhere. So No. So they shut the door and they go back to doing whatever it was that they were doing inside the house. But the sister is still outside at the front door knocking, just knocking. Then she starts pounding and it's getting damn annoying. So Carol, she gets up, she opens up the door and she's like, fine, I'll go to the store for you. What is it that you want? You know, Carol, she ends up doing this favor for her sister and she heads out to the 7-Eleven store. Well, first of all, why the sister just couldn't go herself, we don't know. We don't know. Things we don't know. But the 7-Eleven was just half a mile from their home and it was like a pretty easy walk. So Carol heads out. Now, while Carol is on her walk, she actually runs into her mom, who sees Carol and is super pissed. She's like, didn't I tell you not to leave the house? Like, what are you doing? Why are you out here? You know? And Carol explains the situation, and her mom is like, okay, I'll watch you to make sure you get into the 7-Eleven safe, but I better see you back at the house and, like, don't stop anywhere else. So Carol's mom, she just stops and she watches Carol walk into the 7-Eleven store. And once she gets inside their safe, her mom takes off and does her thing. Back at the home, some time is going by, okay? Like 30 minutes go by. And the siblings are like, where the heck is Carol? It shouldn't take this long to go to the 7-Eleven. Where'd she go? They go outside and they start asking the neighbors, like, have you seen Carol? No, we don't know where she went. Then they go down to the 7-Eleven store and they're like, have you seen our sister Carol? They went in there pretty often, so the cashier, the guy working there, was like familiar with the family and whatnot. So the cashier's like, yeah, I just saw her. She came in, she got some stuff, and then she left. So they're like, okay, maybe she's back at the house, or maybe she's back at the house. So then they go back to the home, and Carol's still not there. She's just like nowhere to be seen. And they're kind of getting worried because they know when their mom comes home, she's going to be really upset. Because what was the one thing she told them not to do? Leave the house. So some time goes by, still no sign of Carol, but their mom comes home. And their mom is like, where's Carol? And all the siblings, they have this like look of worry on their face. And they tell their mom that they have no idea where she's at. She hasn't come home. Alantine is Carol's mom. So she ends up calling the police. And she's going to, report Carol missing because, well, she's missing. Now, these shithead police officers, they unfortunately tell her, oh, well, Carol probably just ran away. And then that's it. That's the advice they give her. Click. Alantine knows for sure there's no way in heck that her daughter ran away, okay? She's like, there's no way. Carol would not do that. So she gathers up some of the neighbors to help her look around the neighborhood for Carol, and they ended up searching like pretty late into the night, and unfortunately there just was no sign of Carol. So a neighbor came out and said that earlier that day they saw Carol, she was carrying a bag with her and like walking home, it seemed. This means that Carol was most likely taken on her walk home from the store or even close to her home, which is scary because it happened right under everybody's noses. But that's really all the information anybody had. 6 days end up going by, no sign of Carol. And on May 1st, police find on Route I-295, it's like near the rear of St. Elizabeth's Hospital, they find the body of Carol Spinks. Carol had cuts and bruises all over her body and there were signs of strangulation. She was fully dressed, but her shoes were missing. Homicide detectives, they have to go to Carol's family. They went to Alantine and they tell her, like, we found Carol's body, and it was just devastating news to the family. Plus, on top of that, a lot of the siblings felt a lot of guilt for letting Carol leave the house in the first place. So a coroner report comes out, and it said that Carol suffered wounds to her face, neck, and hands. One of the strangest things of all was the fact that there was food that was undigested in her stomach. So medical examiners believe that Carol was alive for most of the time that she was missing because of the food in her stomach. Poor Carol was like held hostage somewhere for a couple of days. So the police are now like searching for who this murderer could be. But during this time in Washington, D.C., there were large protests happening, protests against the Vietnam War. So the Capitol was taken over with thousands of protesters, rallies. There was just people everywhere. There were hundreds of people being arrested to the point that they no longer had any room to store these people, and they ended up making makeshift camps to arrest the protesters
I've
and
been
hold
here.
them there. Every
I was here
available
yesterday
police
and the day
officer
before.
in the district was called in for emergency duty to help handle the protesters and make these arrests. Now, because of this, a lot of
I have
crimes got
emergency
buried
duty.
or just put on the back burner because it wasn't their main priority at
Ooh.
the time. So finding Carol's murderer was not top of the list for them, which you think is silly because you think like a murderer would be top of the list, but it wasn't. It got put to the side, which is extremely frustrating to the family. So then, July 1971, 2 months after Carol was abducted and murdered, 16-year-old Darlena Johnson was leaving her house and heading out to her summer job at the local recreation center. Darlena never showed up to work that day. Her mother got a call asking if Darlena would be showing up, and then that's when she realized that her daughter was missing. Her mother calls the police to file a missing persons report. One witness comes forward and says that they saw Darlena in an old black car, and it was driven by an African American male shortly after her abduction. But that really doesn't lead to anything. They just thank you for that information. And that's as far as that went. Time passes once again with no answers. This was a little
Spicy.
different because in the following weeks,
Mellow
Darlena's mother, she
entree.
got a bunch of random ass phone calls. Whoever was on the other end wouldn't say anything.
Spicy
They would
mellow.
just like pick up the phone and then just be breathing all heavily like a creep, you know, like, and then hang up.
How do you be spicy
Like, what
and
a loser.
mellow?
Get some hobbies, you know? So she was getting these phone calls kind of every so often. And I don't know if you've ever gotten these phone calls, because sometimes I get random phone calls where people just breathe on the phone. So I turn it into a competition. I'm like, oh, you're just gonna breathe on the phone? Okay, I could play this game. And then I start breathing all heavily back. I end up turning it into a breathe off, okay? Like, you're not gonna win this game. Not the point of the story. Creepy breathing, losers. Get some hobbies. Anyways, but these calls would keep happening. Okay, so Darlena's mother would pick up the phone, someone's breathing. But Darlena's mother said that she just had this gut feeling that, like, it had to do with her daughter. Either her daughter was on the other line, and she had nothing that was going to prove that. It was just her gut feeling. But I think it's safe to say, you know, that when your gut feeling tells you something, stupid gut, it's always on point. She tells police this, but again, there's like really nothing they could do. They're like,
It's gotta
okay,
be the yogurt
do you have
drink.
any proof? No, your gut is not your proof. But then she received one final phone call, which was a man on the other end who said, quote, "I killed your daughter," then hung up. Wait, how did he get the number? Oh my god, I didn't even think about that. Was it someone that she knew? I didn't even think about that. So after she gets this phone call, for good reason, she picks up the phone, calls police, but there was no technology yet that was actually able to help trace the phone call. And again, there just really wasn't anything that the investigators could do with this information. They're like, oh wow, we'll take note of that. Okay, but then get this, because this will piss you off. I'm sorry, but it will. Anonymous caller calls up the police department. This person says that they believe that there was a body alongside the I-295, but for some odd reason, this call just wasn't taken
Oatmeal.
seriously, and time went on. Then, on July 19th, 1971, an officer spots a body alongside the road of the I-295. Oh, what are the odds of that, you know? Her body was dressed, but without shoes. There were signs of strangulation, but the body had been in this spot for at least 14 to 15 days in the hot sun, which led to like serious decomposition, and investigators were unable to ID the body based off of their face. Police checked the missing persons
Damn it.
report, and based off of the report mentioning the clothing that was worn at the time of the disappearance,
Spicy yellow
they were
mellow.
able to ID the victim as Darlena Johnson. Now, because of this decomposition, they could not fully determine the cause of death, but it's believed to be strangulation. Now, Darlenia was found 15 feet away from where Carol's body was found months prior. I mean, it wasn't until later news came out that an anonymous tip had come into the police department. It's like they didn't want to admit that this happened. You know, they dropped the ball on this, obviously, because the only person who would know that the body was here would be the killer. So it's believed that this anonymous tip came from the killer, because there's no way like you could spot the body just from driving on the freeway or something, and it was not a spot that you could like easily access. It's like a very strange spot, and it was like a very brave spot to put these bodies because it's like out in the open. It's a busy highway. Like the tip that came in was most likely the freaking killer. It's just so annoying, isn't it? Time and time again, same fucking thing. I don't know why it's so hard to do your job. July 27th, 1971. 10-year-old Brenda Crockett was asked to go to the grocery store, which was about a half a block away from the family home. She was given some money and she headed
Cow,
out to
a
walk.
dolphin,
It wouldn't have
or
taken
the
that
dude?
long. Okay, it was just a couple
Cow,
of minutes.
dolphin,
but
or
quite
dude?
Some time passes.
Mascot.
And when Brenda is gone for over an hour,
It's
the family
Olive
knew
Town.
something was wrong.
Why would a
So Brenda's
dolphin
mom
be
is
it?
getting all
The
worried,
cow.
like, where the heck is Brenda at? So she heads out of the house and starts looking for Brenda. While Brenda's mom is out searching, the phone rings back at home. Now Brenda's younger sister, who was only about 7 at the time, she picks up the phone. Brenda is on the other end. Now, Brenda was crying and said, quote, "A white man picked me up and I'm being sent home in a cab." And then the call just ends. A few minutes later,
Floral
the phone rings
perfume.
again. Now this time, Brenda's stepfather picks up the phone, and it's Brenda on the other end again, and he's telling her, like, "Where are you? I can come get you. Just tell me where you are." And Brenda said that she thought she was somewhere in Virginia. And then she asked her stepfather, "Did my mom see me?" And her stepfather is like, "What do you mean, did your mom see you? If she saw you, she would have gotten you." Then he asked Brenda if the man can come to the phone and he could talk to him really quick. So then he said that he hears heavy footsteps in the background, but then the call just ends. Now, it's believed Brenda had asked if her mom had saw her because whoever the killer was trying to get information if they were spotted or not. But that was just their theory. They don't really know what she meant by that. But they think that the killer was telling her to ask that question. So the next morning around 5:50 in the morning, a hitchhiker was walking alongside Route 50 near Prince George's County, Maryland. The hitchhiker comes across 10-year-old Brenda's body. Brenda was fully dressed, but again, her shoes were missing, and she had a scarf which was knotted around her neck. Now after this, families in the area were getting scared, worried, terrified, angry, believing whoever's doing this is gonna come after them, their kids, and police had no movement on these cases. They had no leads, and there was a lot of distrust happening between the community and the police department. The black community voiced that, hey, if these kids were white, I am sure that there would be movement happening, or these cases would be considered top priority, because during this time, there were a handful of other cases that involved white children that were not treated the same, that were solved within a few minutes. Not a few minutes, I'm exaggerating, but they were solved. They were making a valid point. Why is there nothing happening on this? But during this time, there were news reporters who would come into the neighborhood asking everyone questions, trying to figure out what the story was, what happened to these kids. Like, the news, they were reporting on it, and the families felt like this is exactly what the police should be doing, because they weren't on the street asking questions like the reporters were. They were also kind of unsure of like who to trust. Like, why should I be talking to a reporter about what's going on? I should be telling this to the police. So some time goes by. October 1st, 12-year-old Nenemoshia Yates, she was at home in Northeast Washington. Her father asked her to go to the store, which was only 1 block away. Look, this is in the 70s. It was normal for, kids to go walk to the store by themselves. Yes, the news were reporting. They were reporting on this, but, like, not everybody was aware of what was going on. Because I just know, some of you are going to be like, why would you let your kids walk? Because it's not like it is today, okay? So her father asked her, can you go to the store? It's just grab a couple of things for dinner. Thank you so much. So she agrees and heads to the store. It should only take a couple of minutes. She gets there, she gets the items she needs, and she's seen leaving the store and she's walking home. Unfortunately, between the store and her walking home, she never made it. And it wasn't even a far walk. So it's just like whoever this person was doing it quick. And then 3 hours later, in nearby Prince George's County off of Route 4, Nanaimoshia's body was found. I don't know what the hell is going on. Nobody knows what the hell's going on. But same as the others, she was fully dressed. She was missing her shoes. She also had seemed to be sexually assaulted and strangled. There was one witness report who came forward and said that they saw her get into a blue Volkswagen, but that led nowhere. But also, they found green fibers on her clothing. People are pissed. The media is like reporting on these murders and they're putting pressure on the police to make some arrests. Get their asses in gear, okay? Because it seemed to everybody that they were not doing their best to try and figure out what the hell was going on. They still had no answers. They still had no leads. They had nothing. I mean, they have these green fibers. It's like, do something with it. And on top of that, for some freaking weird reason, the police, they were not connecting all of the murders. They thought it was a separate person doing these murders. It just like was a mess. But there was one news source who believed that it was a single killer, and they dubbed them the Freeway Phantom because they believed this killer was using the I-295 as their main way to stalk and pick up their victims and then make their escape. The FBI finally steps in. Now they go through all the evidence from the victims' bodies, and that's when they realized that all 4 of the victims had been strangled. They all had their shoes missing, and then they all had this green fiber that was found on their body. But the FBI was like, most likely these 4 murders were committed by the same person. Whoever this person was believed to be DC's first serial killer. They haven't had this yet. November 16th, 1971. The body of 18-year-old Brenda Woodard was found on the freeway ramp of the Baltimore-Washington Parkway. Brenda, she was stabbed multiple times and also strangled. Brenda was fully dressed, but unlike the others, she still had her shoes on. I was reading one report that said Brenda actually had her name written on the shoes, and it's believed that's why her shoes were still on, because, you know, it could like link whoever the killer was back to her. Something that was also different with Brenda was that she had a velvet cloak. No, she didn't. She had a velvet coat placed over her chest, which was believed to not belong to her. In the front pocket of the coat, there was a handwritten note found in it, which had a message on it, and they believe that this message was written for the police. So this note said, quote, "This is tantamount to my insensitivity to people, especially women. I will admit the others when you catch me if you can. Freeway Phantom." Now this note is handwritten, and they're like, okay, what does it mean? They don't seem to be the brightest over there. They're like, oh God, look, a note. What does this mean? Wow, notes. So police, you know, they're like, hey, let's maybe get a closer look at this note, and let's do like a handwriting comparison and see if that can lead us somewhere. So they do just that. And then they realize the note was actually written by Brenda. They compared it to her handwriting. And the note was also written on her own notebook paper. They thought it was odd because there was no sign of stress in the handwriting, which to me was mind-blowing. So I was like, you can determine stress in handwriting? The things you learn, you know? But they can. So they're looking at their handwriting, and they notice that there's no shaking in the writing. It was evenly written, and it was very clear, which to investigators made them believe that maybe Brenda knew her killer. The word tantamount stood out to investigators because it's just not a word you hear people use all too often. No leads, no nothing, but at least they have this note and tantamount. Great. 10 months go by, and they actually thought that maybe whoever was doing this was going to stop, because 10 months is obviously a long time. Okay, great. We determined that. September 5th, 1972, 17-year-old Diane Williams went to visit her boyfriend that evening, and to get there, she had to take the bus and whatnot, so she did that. After hanging out with him for the night, Diane and her boyfriend, both of them walked together to the bus stop. They waited for the bus to arrive. Her boyfriend hung out with her the whole time, watched her get on the bus. It was like around 11:30 at night, and headed home. Now, unfortunately, sadly, Diane never made it home. Sadly, Diane's body was found like a few hours later on Route I-295 southbound. She was fully dressed. Her shoes were missing, but they did find semen on her clothing, like on her jeans. Now, originally, investigators assumed that the semen was from her boyfriend, but it was later determined to not belong to him. Also, on Diane, there was a small green fiber found on her. Now, they were believing that this green fiber may have come from like inside of a car, but they really weren't sure. So police ended up pulling out like their huge file, a list of predators and potential suspects, and they're just hoping to try and find like some kind of connection to somebody, right? They come across this local gang named the Green Vega Rapists. These people, they hung around Washington D.C. and the Maryland area. Now they were known to like kidnap and rape victims in the area, so they questioned some of the members individually. Some of the people that they questioned were like, there's this inmate over at the Lorton prison. This guy might have some information regarding the case, you know, like go talk to him. And then investigators go out and question this inmate. Now this inmate agreed to talk to police and give information with two conditions: if they could help him get a lesser sentence, and if he could remain anonymous. So investigators are like, yes, we'll do that because we don't have anything. So they're asking him questions, and he seemed pretty credible. So they're like, okay, we're gonna take this guy out on a couple of ride-alongs and see if he knows where the victims were dumped, and it will kind of test him to see if he is indeed credible and he's not just making this up to get out of prison, blah, 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 you know? Now, this inmate, he was able to describe what the victims were wearing and where they were dumped. But there were some inconsistencies in this guy's story. He might know what's going on, but there's still like things he's not getting right. So they take him out on another ride-along. It's like the second time they're out. And while they're driving, they're listening to the radio. So during this time, there was an election going on, and one of the candidates publicly announced to the press that they had a break in the case, that an inmate from the Lorton prison had provided information to help get this case closed. Now this candidate, he was mentioning it publicly in hopes to win people's votes because he was harsh on crime. I'm gonna get this solved. Because that's what a lot of politicians do. They don't necessarily care about the crime, they care about the numbers, especially before an election. So they're in the car, this is on the radio, the inmate hears this. He starts to freak out. I asked you if I could be anonymous. People are gonna figure out it's me. People are gonna know that I'm the one who told authorities this information. So after he hears that, he pulls out from his own fear of being outed and declined further interviews and denied that he ever provided information to the case in the first place. They just keep dropping the ball over and over again because it sounded like this guy knew who did it or was involved in some way, and I don't know. But then the police were like, nah, he didn't know what he was talking about, and they're like kind of downplaying it because they don't want to seem like they dropped the ball. Does that make sense? It's just such a shit show. So many believe that the Green Vega people, they weren't even involved in these murders in the first place. Okay, because this guy, his confession or whatever, it wasn't consistent. But the Green Vega didn't come out until 1972, which was after when some of these crimes had taken place. Maybe they're not involved. I don't know what they're thinking because it doesn't really seem like they're thinking, but they're looking at other suspects. So they look for another suspect. They come across 58-year-old Robert Askins, who was a computer technician. Now, Robert over here, yeah, he had been previously charged with abducting and raping a 24-year-old woman in Washington. So with one of his victims, Robert had the victim write a note, and it was like very similar to the situation with Brenda. The one with the note. They also discovered that Robert seemed to use the word tantamount pretty often. When investigators went and asked his colleagues at the National Science Foundation where Robert was employed, they informed investigators that Robert used this word,
Look how
tantamount,
fucking
pretty
cute I am.
often in his speeches. So a search warrant was issued and documents and stuff was gathered from his home, but there was no physical evidence that was found that linked Robert to the crime. I mean, can you really convict someone just based off of a word? They had nothing on Robert, and he was never linked to it. Now, later on in life, Robert ended up dying in the Federal Correctional Institution in April of 2010 at the age of 91 because he was arrested, or he was in prison for 2 DC area abductions and rapes in the mid 1970s, but he denied that he had any role in the Freeway Phantom killings. I don't know. I get so torn because I feel like if you're already in prison, wouldn't you just confess at that point? What would he have to lose? But then I mean, that's not always the case, but it's like, why wouldn't you? Like, it just sounds like it could have been him, okay? Because I don't know. The word? I don't know. They just got nothing here, okay? So then there were some other suspects. Their names were Edward Sullivan and Tommy Simmons. Now, these 2 bastards were 2 ex-cops who were arrested for the murder of 14-year-old Angela Barnes. Angela Barnes was originally thought to be a victim of the Freeway Phantom. Authorities determined that Angela, she was not linked to the serial killer, but it's like a real suspicious because she was found within the same area as the other victims, and it was around the same exact time that the other victims were found. So you would think that she would be considered part of the serial killer, right? I mean, right? Hello? But Angela was found with a gunshot wound, which is like why investigators believe that she was not a victim to the serial killer, because none of the other victims had gunshot wounds. But the age range, the location of the victim, the timing, it was very similar. When word came out that the 2 ex-cops had murdered Angela, now this came out into the community and everyone's like, see, this is why we can't even trust the police, because it's them. It's them. Like, who do you trust? Why these 2 were not considered to be involved with the other murders is just like beyond me. I mean, I guess the gunshot wound makes sense, but like, that's it? That excludes them? I just like couldn't find a concrete answer as to why they were not connected. I found a lot of assumptions as to why they were not connected, and I just don't freaking know. Kind of seems like they could be though, right? So over time, this case ends up going cold. And then in 1987, a new sergeant came into the district, and she started to just work on cold cases. So she opens up this one, she pulls out all the books, pretty much tracks everything when it comes to this case. It has lists and lists of just evidence that they pulled, the dates, what it was, all that stuff. So she opens up the books and she realized that a lot of the evidence, 99.9% of the evidence, had been destroyed with dates as to when the item was destroyed. So, you know, when they went to the crime scenes and they picked off like the green fibers, the freaking velvet coat and everything, there was no physical evidence left in regards to this case. It was all destroyed. You want to talk about cover-up? Okay, because I think there's something going on there, isn't there? Because in order for evidence to be destroyed, an officer has to prove that the case is no longer open. The sergeant assumed that because the case had been forgotten, like over so many years, they must have just assumed that it was closed, and then they destroyed everything. I bet you, after those cops got arrested, I bet you that's when it was destroyed. I bet you. That was their reasoning as to why it was destroyed. Great answer. Oh yeah, it's just been sitting here forever, taking up
you
space.
bitch.
So it must be closed. Let's destroy it all. So the sergeant, this new sergeant, she realizes this error, and she's like, now I have to rebuild this whole story. So she calls up the FBI. She's able to get the coroner's reports about the victims regarding the case. It's not everything, but I mean, it kind of helps. They go back to the victims' families and they ask for pictures and clothing and items, just things in hopes to build profiles around the victims. But the families, that's when they find out like everything's been destroyed, and they're like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Again, they had no trust in this system because you guys destroyed all the evidence. The sergeant, she's able to gather a lot of notes and paperwork regarding the case, and she just tries her best to rebuild everything, but unfortunately there's just no physical evidence any longer, which is a huge loss. And I just feel like that's not even the proper word, because it's not even a huge loss, it's a tantamount loss, whatever the hell that word is. It just... So they're reworking on the case with no physical evidence, and the FBI profilers, they start again, and they're able to like build a profile as to who they think this killer was. They believe that whoever he was a psychopath. We probably could all determine that, but yep. Most likely hated women. They thought that this person had to be between the age of 27 to 32 at the time of the murders. Most likely held a day job, and whoever this person was overly confident. They were abducting these victims between 6 to 10 p.m. when usually at this time everybody was home. Like, they would come home from work, start having dinner and stuff. Kids are playing outside. So it's just not an ideal time to abduct anybody because the chances of getting caught is very high. It's very ballsy of them. They believe that it was possible that the killer actually knew some of the victims and that they were able to gain their trust because of how quick it seemed to happen. And then based off of the dump sites, I hate that. Dump sites, that's a term that they used. It just sounds so, like, it doesn't sound nice. I don't know. Anyways, based off the dump sites, they were able to determine that the killer is most likely familiar with the area and most likely comfortable there as well, which makes them think that they probably lived in the area, right? Maybe they worked in the area. Maybe it was just a location that was important to this killer. They felt safe enough to drop people there. So unfortunately, time passes, still no leads. The new sergeant who reopened the case, she retired in 1994 with no closure and no arrests made. To this day, the Freeway Phantom killer still remains a mystery. Yep. Law enforcement 100% dropped the ball on this case by destroying the evidence. Some believe that they just wanted to get rid of this case in general and cover their tracks for not solving who this person was, but I think that's safe to say because technology has evolved so much that this crime could have been solved. There was DNA like on the victims, freaking those fibers, the note maybe. I mean, this crime could have been solved these days, and it's just so unfortunate that these shitheads destroyed the evidence. They fucked up big time. Prince George County Police are still actively investigating the murders of all 6 Freeway Phantom victims. If you have any information, please call Prince George's County Crime Solvers at 866-411-TIPS, TIPS. Like I said in last week's video, people like to talk. Us humans, we like to talk. No secret ever stays a secret. You know, somebody has to know something. Somebody heard something. Somebody knows something. Somebody knows. And if you know, please come forward and call the Prince George's County Crime Solvers. Let these victims' families get some goddamn closure, please. Look for the shoes. Where did the shoes go? Shoes? All the shoes were missing. Where'd they go? The shoes. Someone's gotta know something. I'm sorry to do 2 back-to-back unsolved mysteries, but these 2 were just heavy on my noggin. Last week's and this week's. I was like, how does this one go unsolved for this long? How did they fuck up that bad? The police department? Like, give me a break. Anyways, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts down below. I wonder if this person is still out there. I wonder if they struck again and we just didn't connect the dots because for some reason people don't like to connect dots. I hope you have a good rest of your day. Please make good choices out there. Other than that, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Oh, shit. Hi, how are you? I hope you're having a wonderful day so far. My name is Bailey Sarian, and today is Monday, which means it's murder, mystery, and makeup Monday.
I like the...
If you are new here, hi. My name is Bailey Sarian, and on Mondays I sit down and I talk about a true crime story that's been heavy on my noggin, and I do my makeup at the same time. If you're interested in true crime and you like makeup, I would highly suggest you hit that subscribe button because I'm here for you on Mondays. Last time, I didn't upload last week just because it was Easter, my family was in town. I hung out with them, I got some sun. Look at me, I'm kind of tan. I kind of look orange, but I'm here now. The last Monday I uploaded, we talked about the Ken and Barbie killers, remember? That was really stupid. They're really stupid. Awful story. A big thank you to all of those who let me know what an idiot I am because I pronounced Scarborough. I was pronouncing it Scarborough. Scarborough. Yeah, you can always count on me to mispronounce everything. That's one thing I'm consistent at. You know, I do listen to how to pronounce things beforehand. I don't know what happens. Okay, so thanks. Whoops. So, if there's anything you know about me, it's that I don't like unsolved stories. I really don't. You see, I like to go to sleep at night, okay? I like to lay there and be like, and go to bed. But with unsolved stories, I lay there and I go, oh, well, what can happen? And I start trying to solve the mystery as if I'm going to crack the case. I don't know. So I just like to avoid them because, you know, I like to sleep. But today's story is unsolved, okay? And it's real suspicious. I think it's a cover-up, but that's just my personal opinion. I don't know anything, and I would like to hear your input. If you're ever curious as to what I'm using, I'll list it down in the description box. But other than that, let's jump into today's unsolved weird story. Today's story, it takes place in Lacombe, Louisiana. This place, it's a small town and it's about 50 miles north of New Orleans. Lacombe, Louisiana is where Nanette and Steve Krentel lived for about 17 years. Nanette and Steve, they met in 1994. See, Steve, he ran two different businesses. One was like a scuba diving shop, and then another one was a picture frame store. And Lynette had gone into, I think it was the picture frame store, or it could have been the diving shop. She went in there and she applied for a job, and that's how they met. Now, Steve really liked Nanette, and he hired her. Now, at this time, Steve was actually married, and he kept the relationship with Nanette strictly business, as it should be, you know? But over time, their friendship evolved and the two became very close. Steve ended up leaving his wife and started dating Nanette. I use air quotes because I don't think he actually left her. Like, they were still technically married. And Nanette, she was aware that he was still married, but Steve told her that the marriage was rocky and it was ending anyways. So they were dating. But eventually, Steve's marriage, it did end. And not long after that, Steve and Nanette got married. So Steve and Nanette, their marriage would end up lasting over 22 years. So they're together for a long time. I think it's safe to say that. Steve had a son with his previous wife, and his name was Justin, who was 2 years old when Steve and Nanette got married. They shared custody of Justin with Steve's ex-wife, and it was said that Nanette tried her best to be a good stepmom and just a good co-parent. In 1997, Steve ended up closing down the stores that he had owned and started working for the local fire department. So he started at the bottom and really worked his way all the way to the top and ended up becoming the fire chief. And at this time, Nanette was working at a local preschool, and she was there for like 14 years, I want to say. Now, their finances were in a good position. The two of them decided that they were going to build their own home. And this was in the year 2000. Cool. I don't even know what like step one is when it comes to building your own home, but
Have land.
They built their own home.
Make sure it
was
is
in the
attached
middle of
to
nowhere.
the
It's
sewer
surrounded
and
by
water
a ton of trees.
and
It was on 100
electricity.
acres of land. When you're looking at a picture of it, it's really scary because it's just kind of like literally in the middle of nowhere. But there's only one pathway into the house and one way out, you know? There was a gate at the entrance to their homes, which just felt really safe. Steve's cousin, he lived like not too far from theirs. You couldn't see his house from their home, like through the thick trees, but he was pretty close by. It felt very secluded, and it was really just away from everything. Steve and Nanette, they just loved their home, and they planned on being there forever. On July 14th, 2017. Now, it was just a normal morning. That's how it always starts, right? Just a normal ass morning. Nanette woke up. She packed Steve his lunch because he was going to work, you know. So she packs his lunch. She walked him outside. They said their goodbyes. And then Nanette watched Steve get into his truck and drive away to go to work. His shift started around 8 o'clock a.m. And there were all of his coworkers said that Steve didn't indeed show up at 8 a.m. So Steve's at work, what else? Around 2:30 p.m., Steve gets a phone call from his cousin. The cousin that like lives close to his house, remember? Okay, yeah. So he gets a phone call and tells them that his house is on fire. He could see the flames coming up from the trees. His house is on fire. So Steve is thinking like this has to be a joke, and he keeps asking his cousin like, "Are you joking? You can't be serious, right?" And his cousin's like, "No, your house is on fire. You need to get over here." It was not a joke. Steve and the fire department, they headed out to his home, and Steve said during the drive, he had called Nanette's cell phone and the house phone over and over again, but it was just going straight to voicemail. Steve said when he was getting close to the home, he could see that there was a ton of smoke rising up, like it seemed to be a huge fire. He was hoping that it was just the trees around the house on fire, and that's why it was looking so big, which sounds mean, but like that's whatever. But it was actually the house that was on fire. Okay, why am I dumb? But when they pulled up, that's when Steve sees that his whole house was engulfed in flames. I mean, swallowed by flames. Steve said that he was looking around and just hoping that Nanette was not in the home. But then that's when he looked over like at the garage area and saw that the cars were there in the garage and that they were on fire. So he knew that she's probably home, maybe she's inside, because you could not leave or go anywhere without the cars. The firefighters, they find Nanette's body in the master bathroom on the floor. Her body was badly burned, and they found her small dog right next to her. Poor Nanette, she was only 49 years old. She didn't make it. She was dead. So police and firefighters, they start to assess the scene while Steve has to make that awful phone call to tell Nanette's family like what had happened. So Nanette's father and sister were obviously devastated. Steve told Nanette's father that he thought maybe Nanette had run into the burning house to try and like gather the pets to get them out, and maybe was overcome with smoke, and then she
Lemon.
just burned. Nanette's sister and friends, they just were not fully convinced that this is what happened. Like, how could she not get out of a house fire? I mean, she was married to a fire chief, and it was midday. Like, it just fully wasn't making sense. If anything, she would know what to do if there were a fire. So, Now, normally a scene would be closed off until a thorough search was done, but they ended up releasing the property back to Steve and the family just 2 days after the fire. Nanette's family and Steve, they like walked the property. They were looking for anything they could save, like photos or belongings, just anything, you know? And then they also helped like clean up the debris off of the property. The house was completely gone. Like, no walls were left, no roof. It was all gone. So this fire was intense. It had to be intense for it to like just take everything. On July 21st, 2017, that's when Steve holds the memorial service for Nanette, and the service was held at the preschool that she worked for, because she had worked there for, again, like 14 years, so it was just a really big part of her life, and it seemed to be the best place to celebrate her life, you know? And around the same time of Nanette's memorial was taking place, the coroner comes out and gives a statement as to like what happened to Nanette. Because mind you, I'm sorry, but like this was all over the news, house fire. It was just like labeled as a house fire, a woman dies in house fire, house fire, house fire, house fire. So everyone's thinking that she just died in a house fire. So the coroner comes out to make a statement, and he says that Nanette's cause of death was not caused by the fire. Nay, nay. Oh, nay, nay. Nay, nay. The autopsy revealed that Nanette died of a single gunshot wound to her head. Now, ain't that something? So again, Nanette's service is going on, and then people's phones start pinging and ringing, and because everyone's getting word, and people are trying to figure out like, oh my God, have you heard? Blah, blah, blah. And everyone's just shocked. But some people were like, see, I knew she didn't die of a house fire. This is something more. This may have been a homicide. So 5 days after the fire, police return back to the scene, and then they start their formal investigation. Mind you, in those 5 days, Steve and the family had cleaned up a lot of the debris. It did not look the same as it did the day of the fire. So if there was evidence in the debris, a lot of it was cleaned up, which was like just a bummer. So during the investigation, they were able to uncover several guns at the home, but many of them were heavily damaged from the fire. So between Steve and Nanette, they had about 30 guns. Yeah, that's a lot. When Steve was questioned, like, hey, you got a lot of guns, you know, like, why do you guys have so many guns? Steve said that he and Nanette, they collected them and were both experienced shooters. Just seems like a lot. During their search, they were able to find 6 guns in the debris. Now, the bullet that was found in Nanette's head did not match any of the guns that was found in the house, but it was not necessarily because they weren't the correct gun. It was because they were so badly burned that they couldn't make a match. So again, Nanette's body was found in the master bathroom on the floor, and there was a gun that was found like fairly close to where her body was found. So with this information, the sheriff was leaning towards Nanette's death being a suicide. Which, I mean, isn't not possible, but it doesn't make sense. Okay, so it was kind of like ruled as a suicide for a minute. Like, the sheriff really wanted it to be a suicide. But many believed there's no way. There's no way that Nanette would commit suicide. Like, try again. No. The coroner ended up looking for any signs of smoke or soot in her lungs and her throat.
Soot.
And this would determine if she was alive when the fire first started. Now that could give us some clues, because if you're already dead,
Soot.
how can you start a fire? you know?
It ain't. No.
I mean, I know
Nope.
some of you
Nope.
are thinking like, oh, a candle.
It's
or something.
fine.
There's no way a candle could like,
Say it
burn down
however
the
you
whole
wanna
house
say
like
it.
that, right? I mean, I don't know.
Soot.
So the coroner looks, and
Okay.
there was nothing found in her airway that would prove she was alive when the fire started. Even if she took 1 to 2 breaths, there would be a microscopic amount in her lungs. So even if she was like dead, but still things were like circulating, she would get some in her lungs and her throat, but this wasn't the case. So with this new information, it's believed that the fire was started after she died. Now, because
Fucking
Nanette's body
garlic.
was so badly burned, there was no way for them to do like a rape test kit on her or look for any signs of a struggle or an attack. So they really didn't have much to go off of. So back at the crime scene, there were signs of gasoline that was used to accelerate the fire. So there's an accelerant that was used to get this fire going. The evidence showed that the gasoline was poured throughout the living room, okay, and the master bedroom to ignite this fire. Now, to investigators, that means this fire was set intentionally. Investigators are able to locate a DVR while they were searching the master bedroom. It was like buried in the debris. Inside Steve and Nanette's home, they had a huge monitor set up inside. They had a ton of security cameras. They had a camera out at the front gate. They had cameras all around the outside of their house. All of this was being recorded and saved to this DVR. There's no way that someone could get in or out of the house without being caught on camera. So when the investigators find it, they believe that maybe it caught what happened on the day of the fire, right? I mean, it would have to, but actually, it was so badly burned that they're thinking, you know, maybe the killer or whoever did this knew it was there because it was purposely doused in like a ton of gasoline to destroy it. So investigators, they end up sending out the DVR to the FBI in hopes to retrieve the footage from the day of the fire, because this is going to tell them everything. Unfortunately, though, the DVR was too badly damaged and nothing could be retrieved off of it. And I know what you're all thinking. It's Steve. It's the husband. It's Steve. Okay, well, we're going to get there. Calm down. Investigators think, you know, it has to be someone who's familiar with the home and the layout of the home, like where things are at. Because whoever had done it, they had to know where this DVR was in order to make sure and destroy it. So, naturally, they have to question Steve because all signs are pointing to you, Steve, you know? Not looking too good for you. Now, Steve was completely understanding. He knew that, you know, he's the local fire chief. It's not looking good for him. So Steve stands by the fact that it was not him. It was not him. So investigators,
Alright,
though,
I
have
think
to do
that's enough
something.
streaming for
They
today.
uncover that the marriage between Steve
Thanks
and
for stopping by. I
Nanette,
appreciate being here. Don't forget to check out
That's okay.
social medias.
Steve,
And I'll see you
Steve,
next time.
Steve, Steve,
Bye, love you,
Steve.
bye.